Tuesday, November 16th, and I'm going to call the special city council meeting to order. Would the city secretary please call the roll?
Mitchell?
Here.
Coach? Ellison? Ellison? I show him online, but
It's no big deal. You can go through it.
Okay.
He'll be here for the regular meeting.
Flores Kale? Here. Rizzo? Bradshaw? Here. Tobias?
Here.
All right, 4 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, citizen comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments. Next up, executive session.
Thank you. I just got it pulled up. Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary. During this meeting, the City Council may convene into executive session pursuant to any lawful exception contained in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including any or all of the following topics: pending or contemplated litigation, or to seek the advice of the city attorney pursuant to Section 551.071, procurement process, Prairie Lakes Development Agreement, proposed city TERS, and convene into executive session pursuant to Section 551.087 Texas Government Code to deliberate regarding the offer of economic incentives to one or more business prospects that the city seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city. Project Red Violet, Project Phoenix, Project Goldenrod.
All right, there was no action taken during executive session. There will be action taken now. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to proceed with developing an MOU regarding Project Phoenix.
Second.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Flores Kale. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. We'll wait just a second, and then we'll gavel in the regular meeting. All right, good evening, everyone. The time is 7:03 p.m. It is Tuesday, November 16th, and I'm going to call this regularly scheduled city council meeting to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the city secretary please call the roll?
Mitchell?
Here.
Coach?
Here.
Ellison?
Present.
Flores Kale?
Here.
Rizzo?
Present.
Bradshaw? Here. Tobias?
Here.
All right, 7 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, approval of the minutes.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the City Council special meeting for November 1st and the regular meeting for November 1st as well, and the special meeting for November 9th.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Tobias, seconded by Councilmember Ellison, that we approve the minutes for November 1st and November 9th. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilmember Flores Kale.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question for Jennifer. I want to confirm that there were no recusals because there were none stated in the draft, but I thought there was one during the meeting.
I can go back and review the audio. A lot of times those minutes are taken lifetime, and so sometimes I might have missed it. So I can double check that before they're signed.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. Next up, citizen comments period. At this time, we ask anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on any item to please do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and that you direct those comments to the mayor and council. We also ask that you fill out a citizen comments form and submit that to either myself or the city secretary. I have one registered to speak, Mr. Christopher Calkins with AMVets.
Good evening, y'all. I'd like to open up with saying that I appreciate that we get to speak in front of you and bring the good news, the bad news, and the ugly. Tonight, it's all good news. I want to appreciate the city of Kyle for what they did for the veterans. Totally on, totally on. I'm going to give a little speech here. I know I got 3 minutes. We're AMVets, American Veterans. We're here to take care of the veterans in our community. We're off of 401 Veterans Drive. Our house is open daily, 8 to 5. We also serve breakfast 8 to 11 on weekends, on Saturdays. And we want to see all the veterans out there that want to make an approach. I'm going to give a list of what we've done over the last year. This is only a small list. I don't want to take up your time. I just wanted to show you and glaze over what we've been doing. It'd take me almost an hour to sit here and read everything we've done. Been a busy, busy bees. Conducted 3 veterans funerals, including honor guards and honors. Provided 3 honor guard honors for veterans at gravesite. Sent packages overseas to Iraq, Jordan, Qatar, Afghanistan, Syria, South Africa. Provided facilities for COVID testing. Provided honor guard to lead the Creedmoor October parade. Participated in groundbreaking ceremony for the future heroes of Memorial Park. Provided free breakfast and barbecue for the attendees. Supported the effort to change Rebel Drive to Veterans Drive. Delivered food to citizens during the February winter storm. Partnered with Gary Sinise and Tito's Vodka and the disaster team and 2 other veteran organizations, along with many volunteers to serve over 130,000 people. Meals in 3 days to first responders, hospital emergency rooms, and to our citizens in need. Provided a barbecue appreciation to meal all the workers and citizens after the winter storm. Provided facilities to conduct community blood drive. Conducted a family cookout. Taught 12 children how to fish along and with a forest ranger to educate them and on the fishing rules. Conducted flag retirement with history of flags and education on proper retiring the American flag. Family cookouts, fireworks on 4th of July. Provided facilities for community garage sales. Provided facilities for Hayes County Jeep to conduct fundraisers for veterans. Provided honor guard to lead Buda Veterans Parade and float. Provided honor guard members with Kyle VFW to lead Veterans Parade and float. Provided barbecue and program for all veterans and all the families of the Veterans Day. For the remainder of the year, we were going to do Thanksgiving for needy veterans and citizens. Christmas, also same thing. I want to also let everybody know from 8 to 10 for all the veterans for breakfast on Saturday. But not at last but not least, thank you for the veterans event on Saturday. It was very moving. Thank you all.
Thank you. That's all the citizen comments forms that I have filled out. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on any item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments period. It is now closed. Next up, city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've got a great report to give tonight, and so I am going to queue up the presentation while we have Mariana Espinosa come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mariana Espinosa, Parks and Recreation Director. And as Mr. Sellers is loading up the PowerPoint, the first item on the PowerPoint is a recap of our Veterans Day Parade and celebration. And so just on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Department, we were extremely honored to be able to work with all the different community groups that put countless hours into putting the event together. In addition, all the city departments, support from Mayor and Council. It was an extraordinary day, started with a parade, followed by post-event activities, and then ending the day with fireworks. So I won't say much more, but our great communications department put together a video to kind of recapture the day. But it was a great day to honor and celebrate our veteran community, so here you are.
We as a nation honor veterans on November 11th. It was originally called Armistice Day or Remembrance Day. November 11th was designated in 1919 by President Woodrow Wilson as the day we choose to honor veterans. That date coincided with the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, which coincided with the armistice and the end of World War I. American warriors, both men and women, have served this nation through many wars and conflicts since that time. They served because of a love for our nation and our rights as a citizen. Some gave their lives, some are still unaccounted for. Some came home wounded, both mentally and physically. Others survived to resume the life they left behind. Not all veterans have had to face battle, but all veterans answered to the call of duty and would willingly face war for our freedom and our way of life. We know these veterans as dad, mom, sister, brother, grandparents, and friends.
The city, their employees, along with the citizens, have made major steps to ensure that our veterans are not forgotten. There is a Heroes Memorial Park that is currently being built, the changing of Rebel Drive to Veterans Drive, and today being the first annual Veterans Parade. On behalf of all of our veterans, thank you very much.
I understand the importance of showing our support to our veterans to make sure they understand that they are truly loved and appreciated for the sacrifices that we will never see and that we will never know. So I want to thank everybody who came out here. I want to thank the City of Kyle for making this such a great event. I want to thank our families for supporting us during this time as we spent endless hours of organizing and making this great, because I know our veterans needed this more than we could imagine. It is my hope and it is my goal that by this time next year we're having another one, and this time in 25 years we are still having these. It's so important to show our support in any way possible. And I ask that any veteran that needs any type of assistance reach out to us in any capacity, and so we can help assist them. Your service is more than appreciated and honored and respected.
So how can you, as a private citizen, help? If you own a business, consider hiring a veteran. Also, patronizing a veteran-owned business or donation to a veterans program will help a lot. If you get a chance, ask a veteran how they are doing. If you have a veteran in your neighborhood, befriend them and let them know that you care about them. Or just simply thanking them for their service means more than you'll ever know.
say the parade was amazing. The fireworks were incredible. So definitely a night to be remembered. Councilmember Tobias, did you have something?
Yes, I'll just be real quick. It was actually last summer when actually Councilman Robert Rizzo and I were kind of talking about ways we can also honor our veterans, because Councilman Rizzo was really involved in getting the Heroes Memorial going. He put a lot of time and effort behind that. So through the planning of this event 7 months ago, the Veterans Celebration was decades way overdue to our city and our veterans. Well, I brought this to the City Manager Parks Director back in March. COVID numbers were a little high, but the vaccines were making an impact. My hope at the time was maybe we could be able to finally pull this off. I'm proud to say we as a city was able to finally give our local veterans the honor, respect, and recognition they so well deserve. Many months of planning, meetings, numerous emails, phone calls, and a call out for citizen volunteers really made the difference. So a big thanks to all the city staff that were out there that really helped with that. Rachel, Sarah, Grant, Garrett, Samantha for the media, and Benito and your awesome ground crews showing the gold standard of our city with setting up all the barriers and banners and flags and stage for our residents to enjoy the day's activities. The police department, the citizens on patrol for the additional traffic control, Council Member Yvonne Flores-Kale for the assistance with the family, and also with being very persistent about the fireworks, and also the vendor. Councilman Dex Ellison, thank you, sir, for your guidance in those meetings to utilize our efforts to define the overall goals for this event, and it really, really helped. And also many citizens, Peter Parcher, Eva McAdams, Martha Lyons work in the city to provide information and assistance to our vendors and the parade participants. The Chapel family as well for helping out the city to run the veteran hospitality booth to provide information to about our wonderful city with the raffle prizes and for the veterans and sign-up sheets. Last count, we had over 79 veterans and their families, some as far as Houston, that drove in and stopped by the hospitality booth. So I wanted to basically say, finally, we must always remember the sacrifices that our veterans and their families give to us to live free in this country, that enables us to have that great quality of life that we cherish so much. So again, veterans, I want to say thank you for your service.
We want to keep going. Councilmember Flores-Kale.
Thank you. I want to first and foremost, as an Army brat, say thank you to the veterans, because if it wasn't for you guys, this day would not even be possible. But with that said, I also want to give a shout out to the fireworks guy who this is the same gentleman we used in July, and I don't want this to be an example of kind of giving people a second chance to kind of right their wrongs, but the fireworks were amazing, and I've heard nothing but good things, and I fought really hard for them, and it was a coin toss. It could have gone one way or another, but luckily it was heads for me. And I also want to say thank you to the council members that were there most of the day. I've never seen Council Member Dex Ellison, more in his element. He was like smiling, and if we were there from like 10:30 to after the fireworks, and it felt like an hour. The time went by really fast, and getting to talk to the residents. There was never a time that Dex was alone. Let me say that. And so I want to say thank you, and I know Robert Rizzo was able to drive the Grand Marshal, which is a huge appreciation for us. And then we had almost all council members there, so it was great to see everybody in the same place. Most importantly, I want to say thank you to Peter Parcher, who I co-chaired with for the post events, and it was a love-hate relationship. But if it was not for him banging on the door of each and every one of us saying this is what we need, and then last year he did his own Veterans Day drive around. Without a doubt, if it wasn't for him, I can't say we would have been as encouraged to do this as with the COVID around as we were. So thank you to Peter, and thank you to our veterans, and then thank you to everybody who attended. I will say I met somebody from Navasota that drove down here for this parade. Oddly enough, his last name was Flores, and so when he saw my sign, he asked me, was that my sign? Was that my name? And I said yes, and so we started talking, and then I learned that he was a veteran, and then he asked if he could ride on our float, and it didn't. If he's watching, Mr. Flores, it was a total honor to have you on our float, and he provided everybody flags. So it was a great day, and I highly recommend everyone attending these kind of events because it truly felt like a community that I think Kyle is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Mariana, if you want to talk about our upcoming event.
So today we started unwrapping our holiday decoration for our holiday lights at Mary Kyle Hartson City Square Park. On Wednesday, December 1st, we have the ribbon cutting for the park and the Santa's Arrival event. It starts at 4:30 in the afternoon with school choirs beginning to perform. The ribbon cutting ceremony will start at 6 o'clock p.m. with the tree lighting and all the holiday lights being lit at approximately 6:15 p.m. So that's on Wednesday, December 1st. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Mariana, real quick. Have we set a time up when we're going to start wrapping trees with
Actually, we
Contractor.
started wrapping trees today.
awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the park is looking amazing. Jennifer?
So we are having our runoff election. The early voting will start on Monday, November 22nd, and it goes through December 3rd. And then we will have Election Day on December 7th. The locations for early voting are here at Kyle City Hall in the room next door, the Falcone Room. And then you can also vote at Buda City Hall. On Election Day, you can vote at Buda City Hall, Kyle City Hall, or the Hayes County Precinct 2 office. Visit our website, cityofkyle.com/election for all the details.
Thank you. And that was Jennifer Holm, our city secretary. Next, we have Diana Torres, Director of Economic Development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Diana Torres, Director of Economic Development for the record. Just wanted to bring up this event that we have been working on in partnership with Lockhart, San Marcos, and Buda in the Greater San Marcos Partnership. Victoria from our department has put a lot of work into it, and it is called the Get Hired event. It is an event that is going to be open for free to any applicants, so anybody that's looking for a job. It is no registration fee. Please show up. It is, again, this Thursday from 10 to 3, and it'll be at Gemstone Palace. There was a bit of confusion in the registration process, I believe, so that's why I wanted to make very clear. There is no registration fee for any applicants, and if you know anybody or if you are looking for a job yourself, you would be happy to show up at Gemstone Palace this Thursday. And no registration required, no registration fee. So that's it for that.
Diana, are we going
Yes.
to have a count of how many people attend?
Yes, we will.
We will have a count? I appreciate it. Love to see that count.
Yeah, great. And right now we have, I think, 17 companies signed up
Awesome.
that are hiring.
Great job.
Would you like them to register?
No registration.
Okay.
No registration
No
needed.
registration fee. All right,
No
just
fee.
want to make sure.
Yes.
Sorry.
So yeah, applicants, show
All right,
up.
thank you.
Great, thank you.
Nice. All right. We do have our revised December City Council meeting schedule because of the election, so it will be Monday, December 6th. And then Thursday, December 16th is in lieu of December 21st meeting. So we tried to protect that week of the holiday and brought that meeting back. So mark your calendars, Monday, December 6th and Thursday, December 16th, both regular council meetings. Team Kyle news, we do have our Thanksgiving luncheon for Team Kyle. Offices will be closed tomorrow from 11:30 to 1:30 so that all staff can participate in that annual event. And then the city will be closed Thursday and Friday, November 25th and 26th for the Thanksgiving holiday. Also on Team Kyle News, very happy to announce that Amber Lewis has been offered the job and is accepted to be our next Assistant City Manager over Development Services. Amber is currently the City Administrator in Rollingwood in Austin. She will start with us December 6th officially, but if you look back in the back of the room, she may be unofficially visiting us tonight. So everyone look back at Amber and welcome her to Team Kyle. Awesome. And now our Human Resources Director, Sandra Drain.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to welcome the following team members that started with Team Kyle as of the last council meeting. We have Christine De La Cruz, Court, Tony Valencia in Streets, Bobby Dorothy, Treatment Plant, Vanessa Hayes, Treatment Plant, and Sanika Horn, Telecommunications. Very talented people. And I also would like to recognize the veterans that we have in Team Kyle. The following team members answered the calls to serve our country as well, and we're very honored. So we have Jesus Hernandez from Library, Damon Narvaez, KPD, Cole Bates, KPD, Tim Cropley, Facilities, Mario Batista, ES&T, Danielle De Leon Guerrero from IT, Matthew Leathers, KPD, Felipa Whaler, KPD, Dustin Schuler, KPD, Daryl Seagrave, KPD, Duarte Pamplona, KPD, Jarrett Bean, KPD, Jesus Salas, KPD, Dan Pruitt, KPD, Jacob Luria, KPD, Philip Cleary, KPD, Edon Longoria, Building, Gary Stebbins, Building, Robert DeFridas, Public Works, Christian Juarez, Public Works, Brett Lance, UB, Tracy Flores, KPD, Matthew Michelson, KPD, Daniel Rainwater, KPD, Julio Sosa, KPD, Vincent Acevedo, Public Works, Derek Turley, Public Works, Matt Clark, KPD, and Christiana Spencer, HR. About 10% of our staff are veterans, so I'm very happy about that.
Samantha Armbruster, Director of Communications, and I get to share the awesome news that out of 314 entries from across the state, the City of Kyle was awarded 2 from a state agency for some recent videos. We got first place in our COVID PSA. This is a video that was put out telling people to stay home and keep all the pie for themselves during COVID. And we received third place, which is third place for our military video that was for the Heroes Memorial groundbreaking event. So great timing, and I have no doubt that our recent Veterans Day Parade will be a contender next year. A special thanks to Grant Bowling. Y'all don't see him because he's behind the door broadcasting these meetings, but he is the magic behind these award-winning videos. Yes.
I just want to say, thank you to Matt back there. He is pretty amazing. And I mean, his work is phenomenal, but his attitude and his kindness, like he's just such a great person. So overall, we're very lucky to have him. So thank you. Thank you to you, Matt.
Thank you. All right, and that concludes my report.
All right, that's a wrap. Quite a lot packed into those few minutes, so. All right, next up, agenda item number 5, presentation regarding Kinder Morgan. So as most of us on the dais were here when we negotiated with Kinder Morgan, there was a settlement that was reached regarding a 42-inch natural gas pipeline that was coming through the south side of town. As part of our agreement with Kinder Morgan, they agreed to pay a total of $2.7 million in 2 installment payments. The first is $1.35 was received about a year ago. Their second payment is the reason for the agenda item. So I wanted to ask Mr. Alan Four if he wanted to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you briefly again this evening. As the mayor indicated, this is a milestone week for us. I think we tried to do it today, send the money, but it's not in the mail. It's actually coming. Credit to the council and particularly you, Mayor, for the agreement that was negotiated. And, we started this process, I was thinking about this today, back in 2018. And shortly thereafter, I know you personally and city staff were engaged in a very assertive way on the whole process, understanding that there are a lot of regulations from a state and federal level that are involved in expansion of infrastructure, but the city was very forthright from the start about routing, about safety, but actually put that into a comprehensive agreement in writing that was signed by both parties that binds us not just for this particular financial arrangement, which is unprecedented for us, credit to the city again, but also for the future, for things like, as Councilman Ellison has pointed out, what we can put in the pipeline. I honestly, I've said before, and I think again, that what you have done is going to be others are going to look to you, other jurisdictions, other cities. Whenever we start an infrastructure project, and I know you know this as a city, any infrastructure is controversial. When you expand anything, it's going to be controversial. A lot of strong opinions about our type of infrastructure, energy infrastructure, natural gas, and the use of those fuels in the future. But I think one of the lasting values of this project is the supply of natural gas. If we saw in the winter storm events this year, last year, and in the future, we'll see this again, our energy grid is being strained. And energy analysts in the last winter storm cited this pipeline as a reason that there wasn't a broader failure of energy supply to the Austin general metropolitan area. And that's because of the enormous supply that this brings through the hill country. The other thing we've seen, I mentioned this before, but now it's becoming more specific, is the economic development component. One of the things that particularly large manufacturers, large assembly plants, and other facilities look at, in addition to workforce and quality of life and tax structure, et cetera, is reliable energy supply. And I know specifically in Hill Country, economic development groups have approached us about access to line by interested developers of that type of growth and business development. So those are the lasting items I think that will be of value to the city of Kyle, Hayes County, and the Hill Country for many years to come. When we're done with the project, I know when we start it could be controversial. I hope most of you believe that what we did, we worked hard, we weren't perfect in the process, but I know the mayor called us many times, council members called us about issues, whether it's with landowners or whatever it might be, and I hope we address that in a prompt way. We've enjoyed very much being part of this community. I was excited, Mayor, when you showed me what some of the funds are being used for in your park. That's very exciting. And we certainly look forward to being part of the community for many years in the future. So I just wanted to be here tonight to again thank the council and staff, the community. This was an important project for us, an important project for the Hill Country in Texas, and we look forward to being part of the community for a long time.
Thank you, Alan. You know, I actually will sort of echo what you say about Winter Storm Uri as an undeniable fact in the Mitchell household, because we had power gone and for a long period of time. And the one thing that was our saving grace, the one thing that never failed, was our natural gas fireplace, and it kept our whole house heated in time of crisis. So it was pretty interesting to see, you know, just how natural gas as a source of energy and heat can be valuable to our community. So for that, we are thankful. And obviously, you know, it was a challenge dealing with the size of the pipeline, and some of those conversations were tense through the years, but we did come to an agreement, and certainly Kinder Morgan has lived up to their end, and they are to be commended for that. Does anybody else have anything to say? I believe the funds are supposed to be here today, but it looks like they're in wire. I heard from the
yes,
yeah, so they'll be here tomorrow.
Definitely this week for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Does anybody else have anything else that they want to add? Councilmember Flores Kale.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for living up to your part of the bargain. But if ever there is a time that you could just give me a call and we can discuss the pipeline and how it works, because maybe because I don't understand it, I would just assume that it goes through since it's going down, that it tends to get exported, and I could be incorrect, but I would be really interested to figure out how that line works and to get a better understanding of the benefits that it brings to our city.
Sure. If I could just quickly, we'll be happy to follow up with you, but I think that's an important question because that has been throughout the process, is where does this gas go? Whenever we build a project, propose to build a project, we don't build it unless the capacity of the pipeline is nearly full. We have to allow for additional future access to customers. But so all of the gas in the pipeline is being delivered primarily to Texas-based customers. And customers at the end of the day are utilities or industrial facilities, but ultimately homes and businesses. That's where the gas goes. To the hill country, though, this type of infrastructure, there have been natural gas pipelines in the area for generations. That's how you've received natural gas prior to this project. The value of this is the ability to access it. So we already have multiple delivery points in the hill country now. Basically, that means this is a big 42-inch line. A utility or other entity will hook onto the pipe and pull gas off for local distribution. So that's what we're seeing more of. So your local utilities are already in discussions about additional access to the line for the future, because one of the things we saw from the winter storm is reliable access and making sure that you have contractual access, because when there's a huge demand on the system, the customers that have that contractual access have priority. So I think that's what the utilities are looking at, that's what the Texas Railroad Commission is looking at, and that's what this pipeline will provide, but we'll be happy to sit down and talk to you about the specifics of that.
All right, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments? Thank you, Alan.
Thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up, agenda item number 6, presentation of graduates from the Kyle Citizens Police Academy, class number 13. Chief Barnett. We're going to have a story time about a certain member up here being wrapped up. I saw a picture that needs explanation. I figure it needs it in the public.
I think that may come out, yes, sir.
Can we make a video of that?
I think that may be part of the presentation. Just going to give just a second for the group to roll in. Great. Mayor and Council, my name is Jeff Barnett, Chief of Police, and thank you for allowing us to be here this evening to recognize a group of extraordinary citizens. This group of citizens undertook a training opportunity and a participation opportunity with the Kyle Police Department several months ago, known as our Citizens Police Academy. This is class number 13 that the police department has conducted, and this group of citizens that we're here to recognize tonight gave at least 10 weeks of their time, sometimes 2 or 3 days during that week when they would come out on the weekends and such and participate in their ride-alongs. But they gave their time as a member of our community to learn about their police department, and that means all facets of our police department. So the citizens come to the police department with an open mind and a willingness to learn about what services the police department can offer, and we could not do so without great citizens to start. We could not do so without great instructors to lead the classes, and that comes from the subject matter experts in the police department from their various assignments. We certainly could not do that without the lead instructors that make sure that the academy classes ran smoothly and proficiently and professionally, and that is Officer James Plant, who's here with me now, and Officer Dan Pruitt, who see to it each week that the classes ran on time and provides good instruction and information to our citizenry. The purpose of our Citizens Police Academy class is to build a relationship, to share what we do as a police department, to be open, to be forthcoming about our strengths, our weaknesses, to talk about the future of the city of Kyle, but again, to build those relationships. Throughout the 10-week program, the citizens attend various classes where we have members throughout our police department who come in and share what it's like to perform their services to our community. Just a few of the areas include the Criminal Investigation Division, Animal Control, Code Enforcement, Records, Mental Health Services, Juvenile Officer Services, Victim Services, the SWAT team, the Community Engagement, and certainly our patrol officers, and many more. We have had an outstanding class, and we're here to recognize this graduating class in just a few moments for Class 13. But you'll also see in the room members in blue and a few in white shirts that represent the alumni classes from those who have graduated before. Those members continue to serve in our community. We mentioned them earlier tonight at our Veterans Day events. They continue to serve, and we will be asking this graduating class to join our Alumni Association so that they too can continue to serve and be part of the Kyle PD family. That's the Citizens Police Academy alumni, and then for those who choose to move into our ever-growing Citizens on Patrol program, both of which represent us very well. I would like to take just a second here to introduce Officer James Plant and let him tell you a bit more. After the ceremony and recognition briefly, I'll also let everyone know that there's a small reception at the police department to celebrate their graduation as well. Officer James Plant.
Mayor, Council, for the record, James Plant, Police Officer, Kyle PD. Again, thank you guys for supporting this program. It is class number 13. I think we had 1 year where we didn't have a class for some reason. I think it was a staffing issue. But other than that, we've run at least one class, sometimes two a year. This group has been great. This is our first class since the pandemic, and we were able to start meeting again. We did a lot of the classes here in the chamber, so we were grateful for the opportunity to host it. Something new that we hadn't had in any classes prior was we had a SWAT demonstration put on by the Hays County SWAT team at the Alert Center. The students were able to go to different rooms and learn about different equipment that the SWAT teams have. I had no clue they had robotics, but they got to see the different equipment. Then they did a home entry, a room entry, where they started with sniper, taking a shot into a window, and then the team went in. So they were able to see some cool stuff. And we actually hosted that class as a joint class with Buta's Kyle Citizens Police Academy that they started this year. So it was a great opportunity. This has been a great class. This is one of our largest classes. We had 22 attend this 10-week course. We're hoping next year to have 30, if Chief allows. And then once we get into the new Public Safety Center, the sky's the limit. We had a council member, Councilmember Rizzo, in this class. He was there every week, made sure of it. He was like, "Hey, I'm going to be there. I might be late, but I'm going to be there." Greatly appreciate you attending the class, and Councilmember Ellison helping out with some of the scenarios and just stopping by during the 10-week program. Thank you for that. I would love, Councilmember Koch, you're an alumni and you show up too. We really appreciate it, and we would love all of council to attend it and just learn a little bit more about the police department. But it's also an opportunity for citizens, council members, city staff to not only see faces and learn names, but just kind of get the personality of those officers that are teaching. So thank you, because I'll keep going. Next, we're going to just read the names of of the students, the graduates, and then take a picture with you guys if we can do that. Captain, Sergeant Plum. And then there's going to sit at the end right there, right? Okay. Gloria Aguilar. Amy Crouch. Geneva Garza. Alonzo Iregas. Albert Karch. Alma Medina. Ada Escovel. Thelma Trahan. Diana Myers. Jessica Michalik. Mary Grace Montgomery. Juan Pineda, Mary Raymond, Ryan Daniel, Tracy Shield, Paula Rizzo, last but not least, Councilmember Robert Rizzo.
Could we invite the mayor and council to join us for our graduation? Yeah, it is going to be a big picture. We did have a big graduating class, so. And we're missing something. We're missing something. Oh, yeah, let's do that. So, yeah, y'all may get y'all stand back there. Big class, which is a great thing to have a big class.
It is.
Which means a lot more members for our Citizens Police Academy alumni, right?
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is it's a panoramic, so I'm gonna say cheese, and everyone stay really still, and I'm gonna scan this way, okay? Okay. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, cheese, hold.
That wasn't fun.
I know. Seriously. Wait, one more. Don't make me laugh this time. Ready? 1, 2, cheese. Okay, and one look. Good job. Okay, we got it. Congratulations.
Hey, let's reconvene at 8. We're going to take a recess. We'll reconvene at 8. 2 p.m. Next up is agenda item 7, CIP Road Projects presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barba, City Engineer. We'll start off with the best project, one of the best projects, of course. Here is Memorial Park. We're about 17% complete. Right now, they're forming the Memorial Honor Wall. They're installing the bridge spans, and they're installing a pump vault and water fountain. So you can see a really good picture there of the future bridge that we're going to have there. Levying Park, based on our estimates, it's still at about 15% complete, installing utilities and a pump vault on that project. Mary Kyle Hartson Park project, we're about 60% complete. It's really starting to look really great in there. They're working on the metal, custom-made metal fencing. They're planning to install that this week. The pavers and the promenade are being laid on there. And then they are working on the north and eastern portions, installing landscaping, concrete trails, and electricity. The Windy Hill Street and Drainage Project, this is the last time you'll see this slide. We did get our as-built. We're making final payment. We're releasing retainage. And the only thing that we're working on now is we're working on responding to a bunch of questions that the GLO is asking us to close out the project. Southside Wastewater Project, we're about 92% complete. We're trying to make sure that we can get the lift station going so that we're ready to accept flows. The contractor is going to complete this and then move over to the TxDOT right-of-way to start wrapping up the rest of the line that we have to install in those areas. The treatment plant expansion project, we're about 79% complete. We're going to continue working Saturdays based on the weather that we've been having. They're working on the plant bypass operation, and the generator testing is underway. These are real important features of the plant. The bypassing, for example, we're actually connecting the existing 30-inch line that we have there and the new 42-inch line that we have there to the new manholes. So it's a pretty serious operation. We still plan to complete this by March of 2022 and the dewatering facility by August of 2022. Everything's still on schedule.
Leon, is there a plan for like a ribbon cutting of the treatment plant?
We haven't talked about it yet, but that's a good idea. Yes, sir. We will look at that.
It's our original big investment.
Yes, it is. At one point, it was our biggest investment, yes. We do have a drone video of the construction progress if you're interested, so if you want to go ahead and look at that, that's out there. The Button Creek Interceptor, good news, bad news. We're still at 60% complete. We're still waiting on that 36-inch pipe. We keep hearing 2 weeks, but we'll believe it when we see it, obviously. We did get some 12-inch pipe in, which is for the reclaimed water line, so we are working on that. We did have 2 bores under the creek there. We've done the one for the 42-inch line. We still need to do the remaining bore for the 12-inch line. Old Post Road, the owner did agree to the revised right-of-way. We didn't quite get the documents wrapped up. We're still working on those to try to wrap those up. Hopefully we'll have it at the next council meeting. But they did allow us to start construction. Public Works is about 70% complete on their water line, and they're thinking in 2 to 3 weeks that'll be finished, and the county's planning to jump in right after that and start excavation. Elliott Branch Interceptor, we're about 43% complete on this. We are finishing the bores under Sledge, that culvert there at Sledge. We're installing water, wastewater, and reclaimed water along Sledge heading north. These projects will start showing up on our presentation. Roland Lane, the signs are up today. They plan to do a road closure tomorrow and start tearing up the street. Schlemmer Wastewater Phase 1, that is starting November 29th, but they're just installing erosion controls. We will have a couple of, at least several road closures on that project, but we'll let you know when those happen. And that's what I have for the presentation.
All right, thank you, Leon. Anybody have any questions? Councilman Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Leon. Always appreciate the updates on our projects around the city. Only question today I have is about Old Post Road. So I know you've been working your tail off trying to get that right away deal done and everything. So I have a few residents that reach out to me fairly frequently about that project. You may have already done it, but once we get a chance and get to a point where we kind of can estimate the new completion time approximately, could we get that updated on the website? So then, because I always direct them to that and feed them that information because I think it's a very helpful website webpage we have. So just whenever we get an idea of when we can update that, I'd appreciate that, and just kind of let us know, and that way I'll be able to.
I'll get with the county and we'll work on that schedule.
Appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Leon.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, agenda item number 8, consider impossible action. First reading, approve an ordinance amending the city's approved budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 by appropriating $537,032 to provide funding for change orders numbers 4 and 6 approved by the City Council on 11/1/21 to Cadence Construction Company, LLC, an amount of $438,030 for the Heroes Memorial Park project and $99,002 to construct an 8-inch reclaimed water line underneath Kohlers Crossing. Mr. Moheet.
We will get a new lectern soon. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, for the record, I'm Perwez Moheet, City's Director of Finance. The item before you is for your approval, budget amendment number 2 for fiscal year 2022. On November 1st, City Council approved 2 change orders, increasing the contract award for Cadence Construction by a total of $537,032. This budget amendment, if approved by council, will increase the total appropriations for capital expenditures by the same amount for the change orders approved by council. The funding breakdown for this budget amendment is as follows: $438,030 from the city's general fund to provide additional funding for the completion of the Heroes Memorial Park project, $99,002 from the Water Utility Fund for the installation of the 8-inch pipeline under Kohlers Crossing for the city's reclaimed water system. With that overview, Mayor, I'll be glad to answer any questions from council.
Thank you, Perwez. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Flores-Kale.
Thank you. Last week, who presented this item to us? There was a gentleman up here. I don't remember his name, but the reason why I ask is because I was confused as to why he was so excited. And I think there was I think there was like, he was trying to explain that we had put away $1 million, and I don't really understand. But I will tell you, I was thrown off trying to process the whole situation because I do understand this is an increase of almost $500,000. Well, it is combined over $500,000, and
That's
so
correct.
it kind of makes me nervous that this price of the Heroes Memorial Park continues to grow. I think it started off like $2 million, and can you tell me what it is up to now?
Certainly. So the Heroes Memorial Project, the very original budget was $4.5 million with a $200,000 contingency for a total of $4.7 million.
And then TDX was going to give us 1.5?
$1.5 million, $750,000 in cash and $750,000 in kind. The total budget now, the cost estimate for Heroes Memorial is $9.5 million.
Okay. And then I have another question. In the backup material, agenda item number 811-1-21, council minutes. If you will go to, I was reading this and I just kind of got thrown off. Other information. It says this portion of an 8-inch reclaimed water line was planned to be constructed with the Plum Creek Golf Course Phase 3 wastewater improvements project. Why is that in other information? Why is that important for us to know?
So I included the 2 change orders that council approved on November 1st in your backup document to support this budget amendment. So those were the 2 contract amendments that City Council approved. One was for Heroes Memorial, and the other $99,002 was for the reclaimed water line. So I provided that in the backup, so you will have complete information what makes up this budget amendment.
Okay, so how is that related?
I'm going to ask either the city manager
Yeah, I can
or...
jump in on
Okay,
that
thank you.
one. No problem. So the reclaimed water line is it's the reuse water from our wastewater treatment plant that it's being sent back through the city in our new reclaimed utility that we're developing right now. Because we were doing work in the golf course, we laid the line there so as to not disrupt the golf course again. That line goes up to Kohlers Crossing. We're adding the additional portion of the line through Heroes Memorial Park now as part of this project so that we don't have to come back later and tear up the park to lay new line in the future as we continue to build the utility. So basically, this project is budgeted as part of a future reuse or reclaim utility project, but we're just thinking that we don't want to mess up the park.
So the $99,000 is also going to go to Plum Creek Golf Course, Phase 3?
This comes out of that project and basically gets added now instead of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are correlated.
Yeah, it's
liquidated.
being shifted into this particular extension of that line.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Into that project. Correct.
It doesn't have anything to do with the golf course itself, though. That's just the name.
It's the name of the
line.
project. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve agenda item number 8.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Rizzo, seconded by Councilman Ellison. Is there discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things. So I'm in agreement with the reclaim water line. I know we've been trying to do that in various projects all throughout the city, just trying to be a little bit more forward thinking on that, so I appreciate that. As far as the rest, I know, it's the dollar amount really is one to, you might balk at, but this is originally going to come from the general fund. The TERS will refund this project, and which is a large reason why I'm so supportive of this. This is a TERS that is functioning very well and really doing well for itself. And so, I know a lot of folks. I've answered questions. We've probably filled some as well about, well, why with this project, with this money, y'all could, do all kinds of other things, build veterans housing and all these different things. That's not the case because this is TERS funds. And we're actually taking the bull by the horns, if you will, to really tell where we would like to go in this project as far as improving the infrastructure in this area. And we decided to put it in quality of life initiatives and in these two parks. And so that's what I'm really excited about. And because of the way we've structured this and the reimbursement through the TERS towards the general fund really makes it all plausible. So I'm happy to support this.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Is there any objection to this being finally passed? Seeing none, it is finally passed.
Thank you.
Next up, agenda item number 9, approve a resolution of the City of Kyle, Texas, approving and authorizing a financing agreement for the Kyle Plum Creek North Public Improvement District.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Gregory Miller. I'm with Bickerstaff Heath Delgado Acosta, and we serve as the city's bond counsel. And I'm here to present this item number 9. I'm going to try to keep it very high level, but if you have specific questions, I'm happy to get into that. The item, as noted, is for the approval of a public finance agreement in connection with the Plum Creek Public Improvement District. And just to kind of set the context, as you recall, public improvement districts exist to facilitate the construction of public improvements, as the name suggests. This, I wish it was flashier than that, but that's what we're doing. This agreement that we're doing is between the city and the developer, Lennar Homes, and it just basically is the mechanics of how the developer is going to identify improvements to construct, and how they're going to be financed through the PID mechanism, how the PID assessments or the PID bonds will be used to pay those. It's just essentially a contract between the city and the developer.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Casey? Motions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 9 as written.
Second.
It's moved by Councilor Rizzo, seconded by Councilor Ellison. Is there that we approve agenda item number 9? Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next up, agenda item number, it's a resolution, not an ordinance. So it's not first reading. I don't think I can. Is that right? Right. Okay. Next one will. Next up, agenda item number 10, first reading, consider impossible action on an ordinance of the City of Kyle making a finding of special benefit to the property in the Plum Creek North Public Improvement District, providing for assessments, et cetera. This item is the same. No.
Hi, Mayor and Council, Casey Sclar. I'm with P3 Works, the city's PID administrator. So the document associated with this agenda item, which we have here, is kind of the second of 4 steps associated with the Plum Creek North Public Improvement District. So a couple weeks back, you approved basically the preliminary version of this document. This document is identical to that version. And if there is unanimous approval today, this will levy the assessments on the property within both improvement area number 1 and the major improvement area. So super high level numbers, there's about $6.3 million being assessed on improvement area number 1, which contains 403 lots, and then another 2.7 million being levied on the major improvement. So this is the second of 4 steps, as I mentioned. So if approved, we will then get started on the official bond documents. And the current calendar and schedule would put us back here in January on the January 4th meeting to authorize the distribution of the preliminary offering document, and if everything goes according to schedule, officially price bonds and issue those on the January 18th. We also have representatives here from the developer and Developers Council who just want to talk briefly about the project and the timeline.
Thank you, Casey. Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Kevin Pierce. I'm an attorney with Metcalf Wolf Stewart Williams, represent the developer on this project. I just want to take a brief moment, one, to thank the city and the city's consultant team for all their hard work on this project. This is a big deal with a lot of moving parts going on. Paige is your city attorney, Greg with your bond counsel, P3 have all been really excellent to work with on this. And the approval of the levy, the assessments, it kicks everything off here and really is where the rubber meets the road and starts the process where these public improvements that will be dedicated to the city are funded. And tonight we are asking for first and final approval on this document, on the levy, the assessments, so that the process can get started in earnest and we can keep this moving efficiently. Again, thank you very much on behalf of myself and the developer. We're very excited to reach this point.
Thank you. This item does have a public hearing, so if there are no objections, I'm going to open up the public hearing now. Seeing none, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? All right, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Flores-Cale.
Thank you. I just have a quick question, and I'm not really sure who to pose this to. In the event this does not pass, what happens?
If this does not pass at all, the council votes this down. There is no public improvement. There is no money that gets. There's no assessment levied on the property. At that point, the obligations that were in the finance agreement that was just approved are no longer in effect. The developer is no longer obligated to build the improvements according to the standards. In addition, part of the PID includes the payment of a $2 million payment to the city pursuant to the development agreement. That would go away, and I don't think something that's not anything any of us want. So it would be a pretty grievous blow, but I think this is a good project, and the financing agreement, which you just approved, kind of lays out everything, the protections for the city, the process by which that makes sure that this financing is not only beneficial to all the parties, but is something that is approved by the Attorney General, that is vetted by not one, not two, but several attorneys that were working on the behalf of the city. So there's a significant amount of protection for the city in this project, and if there are any other questions, I'm more than happy to address any of those.
Okay, I just have one more.
Of course.
These assessments are put on the homeowners, correct? Yes. And where do you guys get your assessments from? Where do you obtain that information?
Casey might be able to address that more particularly when we break down the project. Right now, the entire area is owned just by the developer, and so we levy the assessments on the property, and we know which parcel, which lot is within the district. And so P3 goes through all the numbers and they allocate the specific assessment to every single property in the district based on a fair allocation, which is a state law requirement. If you're asking about the homeowners, how do they know what they get, what they're going to have to pay? There are numerous notice provisions that are required both in these documents as well as in state law, which was recently passed in 2021. A potential home buyer who is looking to purchase a home in a PID receives notice not just at the time they sign the contract for the purchase of the home, but they also have to sign one again when the home closes, and it describes that, yes, you are in a public improvement district, you are obligated to pay an assessment, and according to new state law, you have to give that exact dollar amount. That document has to be signed and notarized. And so the home buyer has a full, clear view of not just the fact that they're in a PID, but what that actually means to them and what their obligations are going to be. The City of Kyle has a PID policy that provides for certain regulations and rules that have to be in place for a PID within the city, and one of those is a 20-year bond term, which means that the life cycle of a PID can, the person who pays assessment can pay that is not obligated to pay for more than 20 years. That's the finite life, which is atypical from some areas. We see 30, 35, even up to 40. And so in the city of Kyle, if you live in a PID, you are paying assessments less than someone, for example, in the city of Hutto, Georgetown, city of Austin.
You, my fine sir, have just schooled me, so I really appreciate that, because there was a lot of.
That was a very good explanation.
You gave more information than you were like. That was excellent. Seriously, and for the people who are watching, I hope you learned something, because I did, and I want to say thank you. That was an excellent answer, and it's most appreciative.
It's my pleasure, Councilmember. This is literally all I do all day, every day.
I can tell.
I love being able to talk about it because no one else wants to listen.
No, I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. much. I appreciate it. You
Not
and
good
then-
coffee talk, you know?
Yeah. No
We're
better
on a
place
date.
to explain it than here because people can always come back and look at this video and we can say, hey, this is what it is, this is what it does. And so I really appreciate that.
It's my pleasure, Councilman.
Councilor Ellison.
Well, you took it right from me. I was like, where's this guy been the entire time? But no, I think that was great. You did an excellent job of explaining that, both with the state law, which is important to just change, but also, because I know some people might not be familiar with this, but when we created that PID policy, do you recall what year that was? Yeah.
16. One of the first things I did.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I remember, I was not on council at that time in 2016. I was on P&Z, but I would come to the council meetings, and I saw the strain of what it was before we had this city PID policy. And then once we finally got that on board, started working with P3 Works and other things, and the team that has been created, it is now a more confident and just better process. Like you said, all the protections for the city. So there was a time before where, yeah, I would certainly have had my reservations on these PIDs, but all the work we've done over these last 5 years has really alleviated a lot of that stress. So thank you for your explanation. And as Councilmember Flores-Kill said, it's great to have that because it's recorded and residents can hear it. Your beautiful explanation. Thank you.
My pleasure. I can give my phone number. You want to call me and talk about it? I'll shoot you
Please,
your off.
please call. Ask me.
Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you.
I guess my question is for Scott Sellers. Scott, after 20 years, can they extend the PID? Can that PID be extended?
No, sir. This is a one-time 20-year PID. It basically goes along with the bonds that are issued, the debt that's issued. So once the debt is defeased, it cannot be reestablished or repurposed.
All right, thank you.
And the homeowners are able to pay that off early, right? Or maybe at closing? Okay.
Correct.
Pay and without penalty.
Pay and without penalty.
The day they walk in.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I think our policy even requires PIDs to be noticed on the MLS as well. So for me, it was never the first buyer. It was always the second that I was worried about. And requiring that if it's when a home is advertised, and John and P3 Works helped with that, Rick Rosenberg, I thought that was helpful because you can buy a home secondhand and not know the situation, whether this home has an assessment or how long, but those are required to be noticed and listed.
There's a sign required at the entrances to the community that's a PID community. It's in the MLS, and it's a special sheet, acknowledgement sheet in the closing documents.
Yeah, it's the title of our PID policy is Lessons Learned from Button Creek. All right, I'm sorry. I'm being a little too
I would like
jovial.
to make a motion to approve agenda item number 10.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Flores-Kill, seconded by Councilmember Rizzo, that we approve agenda item number 10. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Is there any objection to this being finally passed? All right, it's finally passed. All right, next up, agenda item number 11, Kyle Area Senior Zone update and discussion regarding selection of construction manager, owner's representative. Mr. Sellers.
All right. Mayor Council, Scott Sellers for the record, City Manager. Do have several illustrious members of our Kyle Area Senior Zone here in the audience, and so thank them for joining us. I really don't have much of a presentation per se, just an update on where we are in the process moving forward. So the council might recall in the budget process that you had authorized $200,000 for the design development documents for a senior center. That was to be matched three ways, a city being 200,000, Hayes County being 200,000, and then the senior citizens, the CAS group, coming up with the remaining 200,000. We looked at, in one of our previous meetings, we looked at even including more in the design that would take the design cost beyond that 600,000. There was a talk of a pool and some other larger auditorium areas. But those additional features drove up that design cost well beyond the 600,000 that we had all agreed to in the budget. And so we challenged the seniors to say, if you would like these additional items in the budget, then you would be responsible for raising the design costs, the fees for that additional amount. So at this point, the seniors have raised some money, a good amount of money on their end as well. They're closing in on their portion of $200,000. We received a commitment from Hayes County for their $200,000, and of course we have ours budgeted. So they do have a proposal from one of their members for design document preparation that would take through the design development stage up to the contract stage, and that's where it would end currently in the proposal. However, we have learned some things in the construction of our own facilities about the additional contract administration, or the CA portion of these documents. And as we have worked on our parks as well as our public safety center, we have found it expedient to bring in what we call an owner's rep. And so we hired AGCM, and they have been running our projects very well. The senior center would be on city land at Linebarger Lake, and it would be a city facility as well. And so in the anticipation of designing and constructing another city facility, we thought we would take a little bit of a pause before we engaged a designer to talk about perhaps the expediency of having an owner's rep oversee this project as well. It would ensure that the design from basically day one, in this case, was appropriate for the site, appropriate for the design and the design of the architectural firm, and then follow that through with the construction bid, the construction administration. It's not to say the architect wouldn't have a role in construction administration or oversight as well at that time, but that will come later once we get into that contracting phase. So to oversee that process, that entire process, I thought that we could have the conversation of bringing a group that would be an owner's rep. I called Ryan Rosborough from AGCM, again, who's our owner's rep on our other projects, and asked him if he would just stand and say a few words about the owner's rep process and how that's worked on our other projects. We could bid out the AGCM or the owner's rep contract moving forward. If the council would like to engage an owner's rep, you don't even have to if you would just like to go straight through the architectural firm. But there's pros and cons of either direction. So with that, Ryan, if you can come forward and just talk about the owner's rep process and how that's worked for our current facilities.
Thank you, Scott, Mayor, council members. So I'll just, to kind of run you through our role as an owner's rep, I'm going to dumb this down to a level that I understand, because that's how I process things, is on a very project management for dummies type level when somebody taught me. So if you think about medicine, right, if you have a sore throat, you don't go to a podiatrist, right? A podiatrist and an ENT, they're both doctors, but they have totally different disciplines. So if you look at owner's representation, which is us, you look at a contractor and you look at an architect, they're all working in construction, but they all have totally different responsibilities and totally different disciplines. So we're all working in the same pool, but we answer to different authorities, basically. So our role as an owner's rep, if you think about every single project, doesn't matter if it's a road, doesn't matter if it's a public safety building, what it is, every project you deal with will have three things in common. If you think about a three-legged stool, every project's going to have an architect and an engineer, every project's going to have a general contractor, and every project has to have an owner. That's regardless of what kind of project it is. An owner's rep is not a fourth stool on the leg. We are on the third leg with the owner. So essentially, what Leon is doing with all these projects, managing them on your behalf, that's exactly what we do on your behalf. We're just hired guns to help carry that out, because Lord knows he's probably got his plate full, and there comes a point where you just can't do any more as a city. And so our goal is to come in and bring you that expertise to help represent you and your interest and the stakeholders' interest all the way through the process from cradle to grave. So that's the 2-minute elevator speech. I hope that clarifies it a little bit, and I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding our role, or a PM's role, not our role, an owner's representative role in general.
So what are you looking for from us at this point?
So tonight, the question to council is whether or not you would like us to engage an owner's rep firm, whether we would engage HCM or open it up for bid. for an owner's rep service, if that's the direction the council would like to go,
Are both of those options available to us?
under a professional service, correct? We would come back.
Scott said we could either engage with AGCM or go through a procurement process, and I'm wondering, just to make sure both of those options are available to us so we can decide whether to engage with AGCM or do we have to go through a procurement process?
Well, for an architect, that's a professional service, so you can go through an RFQ, you review qualifications. If you have some experience with the architecture firm, based on prior engagement, you may be familiar with qualifications, so you can engage them on that basis. The construction manager is also a professional service, and so that one, again, is an RFQ process, or if you have experience with the entity that you want to contract with, then you can engage that person or that company.
So we do not have to do an RFQ if we choose not to?
You just have to have some understanding of the qualifications of the company that you're going to engage.
Correct. So either one.
So yes, is what I heard in the long way.
You asked a lawyer a question, I'm sorry.
No, right. Either or.
So either or, and then again, the third option is the currently proposed option, just based on the timeline of events, which would be just to hire the architect. But if that is the case, I would say we would bid that service out. If we do bring in an owner's rep, I'd have the owner's rep look over the design from the current architect that's proposed the design for the senior center, make sure that everything looked good and we were good to move forward with that architect firm.
Councilor Ellison.
Thank you. I appreciate you always giving us options, and certainly I think these are certainly viable ones. I think the council has expressed great desire to move forward with this and do everything we can to make this project come to fruition. I guess my question is, so we kind of earmarked essentially between the three entities $600,000.
Correct.
Obviously, we don't really know probably what the design costs are going to be until we have an overall estimate, because there's the industry percentage that they go by. So just in the sake of keeping this project moving in a very productive and way, I guess I'm just a little concerned about where we are on that, and if we need to do more, or where we are. Because I don't want this project to stall. I know the council feels probably this way as well. We want to keep this moving. We have everybody engaged and interested. We've engaged the county in different things. So what really keeps this ball moving? And is that $600,000 going to be enough?
Great. So two great questions. The owner's rep would help keep it moving probably better than we can. Right now, it's Jerry Hendricks and myself that are keeping it moving on our end. Right now, I would say the slowdown is CAS finding that remaining funding amount so that we get to the 600, because we can't let a project that we don't have fully funded. So we're waiting on the final funding lift. If we move, so the agreement with Stephen L. Butler, so that's the architects, SLB architect. The typical architectural contract is a percentage, and that was originally proposed to us. But we sat down with Mr. Butler, we negotiated, we told him that we have a set cap. So he did revise his proposal to us, and he capped his services at $600,000. But that did not include the CA portion of it. So it brought us through design development and then construction docs, but it ended there. The additional CA portion, which basically means someone from his firm is on site to ensure that everything is being constructed based on the plans, which is also something that an owner's rep would be doing. That he proposed that dollar amount comes later, based on our ability to then finance the construction of the project.
Thank you, Scott. I guess I'll hold off in case council has.
Councilmember Flores-Cal.
Thank you. My first question is going to be what is the cost for an owner's rep?
Well, we have spent on our several projects with the owner's rep, I think it was at 3% of the total budget amount for each project.
And where is that going to come from?
So if we did engage an owner's rep, we would have to, of 600,000, we'd have to probably just come out of the general fund for it, additional expense.
Okay.
Councilmember Rizzo.
So, Councilmember Kell kind of lead into my question, so I appreciate it. Thank you. But anyway, so we're guessing at what the project's going to be. How do we know what the price is going to be for our owner's rep when we still don't even know what the size of the building's going to be? I mean, I guess that's what the question I have right now. Are we guesstimating? What are we doing?
All right. Can I try to answer that?
Please.
If typically, this design is 600,000, that's probably 10%, which is what you were using in the back regarding other projects, which makes it a $6 million project, which means the owner's rep would be 180,000 if it's 3%. Does that sound right?
In this case, so
I'm just guessing. I'm throwing a number because I actually want to get to the answer
we're
that he's
guessing.
asking
So,
as well.
well, I can tell you.
We're guesstimating. Yeah.
Based on the total square footage of the proposed square footage, and I don't remember, Larry, do you know the total? 43,000 square feet. So $250 a foot, let's say, to $300 a foot. So you can see what the cost of the facility is going to be. He capped his amount at 600,000 just to get through the CD. So, the construction administration is another big portion of that architectural fee that's just been cut out so far. So you can kind of get an idea of, what that cost is going to be.
Okay, that's good. I like that answer. I really want to move forward with this project. One reason it's really important to me, I spent a lot of time with our area seniors, our CAS group. They're an amazing group. I'd love to see them get into a building that will allow them to expand with their membership. Just today, we do a yearly Thanksgiving luncheon for them. And to see people having to be turned away because we don't have enough room in that building really breaks my heart. And I'd love to see that luncheon, once a year luncheon, expanded. And we can't do that in the current facility. So moving this forward, I think that our best interest is to engage an owner's rep and move forward. And let's get this building built. I want them to see it in real time. Our seniors deserve it. None of us are getting really any younger. Yeah. As a fellow senior as well.
Let me see if I can add a little more clarity to the conversation. So just some quick math, it's somewhere 12 to 13 million, in today's prices for a 43,000 square foot. And again, that's what's being proposed to us. Council hasn't had an opportunity to look at those plans yet. So that would be forthcoming as well. The funding that we've talked about in the budget process for the construction phase would be hopefully through some sort of CDBG allotment, right? So becoming an entitlement city would allow us to receive certain amount of CDBG funds, of which a senior center is an eligible expense for CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant. And then you can bond off of future allocations, expected allocations of CDBG. So it's a very creative way to come up with that amount, but I think we could do it. Plus, the county is as kind of the area agency on aging and, health and human services, so they could route some of their funds. We've also talked to the county about this being a regional senior center. At 43,000 square feet, that's large, right? And it really, the Hays County does not have a dedicated senior center anywhere in the county, so this would be something that we would ask them to partner with us on and try to bring seniors from all over the county, which would make them full participants.
Thank you. Two questions. This 12 to 13 million, is that going to include the swimming pool? Is that like everything that?
That does not include the pool. So, yeah, that would add to the cost of the design, and then it would add to the cost of the construction. Now, with that said, we have had some conversations with CAS. There are some entities, local entities, that have talked about building a pool here in Kyle. It's like some rehabilitation pool or other, maybe the school district that was talking about it for a while. So we think that maybe there's an entity that would like to partner with CAS on a pool, but they are having those conversations with Seton Hospital and other entities, St. David's Foundation, to see how they might participate in that.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I wasn't done yet, I'm sorry. Yeah, but definitely, I know the price was gonna be more than $6 million, 'cause I've seen what we're putting together here in the city already. So I knew we're probably closer to 12, 14, maybe 15, with the size of a building this size, 'cause I've seen the floor plans. I was one of the first persons Larry showed the floor plans to, and I was like, oh my God, that building's huge, But with that being said, the different funding sources, I don't know what the infrastructure bill coming out is gonna look like. I don't know what we're gonna be able to pull from that as a city or even a county. So that maybe gives us a little bit of hope of getting some funding there as well. So I think moving forward, a lot of pieces, one of the things that's important is getting 30% DD ready. So if we're not 30% DD ready, most history has shown us that you have to be 30% DD ready for the federal government to even consider your project. So something we need to really think about.
I don't have a great number yet, but I'm estimating somewhere in the $300,000-$400,000 a year range for CDBG, just based on what I'm seeing elsewhere. We won't know that until we get our official numbers. As far as the pool is considered, the cost of the pool and the cost of annual maintenance, frankly, is probably beyond what CAS can do from an annual lift or what we would want to do from the city's budgeting perspective. So I think the current facility without the pool is probably the way to go, and it's right on a lake that's swimmable.
Are we wanting to cut the pool out at the design phase? Or are we wanting to design it and make that decision once we get better numbers? Because if we're pursuing grant dollars, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I don't know how much difference the price will be from a architect standpoint.
Do we know where we'd get funding for maintenance and
That'd be our general fund.
general fund? And we don't have an idea of what cost would be? Just like every day?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Let's turn this around. I feel kind of sad. I don't want to be sad about this. I'm super excited. If there's a will, there's a way, guys. Let's figure it out. I'm gonna do a bake sale.
Okay.
And we could do it the old-fashioned way. I'm being serious. Like, I really think we need to put in some real hard thought into where we're gonna get this money, and we just make it a goal to get it, and then we do it. It's just putting one foot in front of the other.
That was kind of my point. Or do we want to start cutting away at this? Is this the time to make the hard decision as far as cutting out elements?
Well, I think, really what we need to decide, what council would decide is, do you want to bring in an owner's rep? And if so, then would you have the owner's rep bring back, work with the architect, bring back the plans, then we have a work session to go over those plans and the estimated cost of those plans.
So the answer on the architect is typically the way we've selected architects is through a pretty thorough vetting process. So my challenge has nothing to do with the design that's been proposed. It's just that I'm not sure we've had a chance to feel like this is, when you're talking about a $10 million plus investment, we want to make sure that, that it's exactly what we're pursuing. AGCM has been very helpful in getting us to that point of getting the most out of a project. So I'm not sure what Ryan's opinion might actually be on what your thoughts for architect would be on this, whether you think we want to keep going with the plans or whether in your mind you would want to go with a more competitive process.
So just to clarify, I haven't seen the plans. I haven't seen what's on paper yet. I don't know how far the architect is in the process. I haven't seen their contract, obviously. So those are all things we'd want to look at just to kind of get our arms around where they are in the process. And to your point, we don't want to slow down progress. So if they're already at a certain point past no return, we definitely don't want to disrupt that. If the architect's done a good job, there's no reason to change horses, obviously. But one of the things I would consider, if you do decide to bring on an owner's rep, whether it's us or anybody, you don't necessarily have to commit for the entire process at this point. One of the things we like to always present as an option is, right now, you don't even have a budget for the project. but you do know it has to be designed. You know it has to go through the design process. So while you may look at 3%, say, as a target for owner's rep through a whole project, if you're only talking about design, it's maybe 0.5% or 0.75%. So it's really is a drop in the bucket for the front end documents. The cost for an owner's rep starts to pile up when you get into construction, when you have that representation on site every day. That's where the cost comes in. So, I just wanted to add on to that. So it's not 3%, so don't get that number stuck in your head. It would be much less if you're just talking the design. Then once you find out the project is feasible and it's budgeted and the budget's been approved and the design's been approved, you know what it's going to cost. Then you can negotiate an owner's rep contract for the rest of it. But I would say just for the sake of where you are now, I'd worry about that front end first. I wouldn't pay anybody for the back end until that's all figured out.
But as it relates to the architect?
As it relates to the architect, I would have to get my arms around the contract, honestly, and see where they are. Again, if they've already been procured, I don't know what process they were procured through.
I don't think they were, and I don't think we've voted on any contracts or any. So we're at ground zero.
Okay.
Right now, there's been some proposals, and someone, they're engaged, they're ready to go, so they're throwing ideas out, and they've got some talent and skills. It's just kind of a question of, and I think to me that's why the owner's rep is good to help go in there and make sure that every T is being crossed, every I is being dotted, that the plans that are being put forward are really good plans, not only for a senior center but long term. There's just a lot of things to consider, which you've obviously done a great job helping us with at this point. And I also remember the comments being made that it would have been better in some of these big projects that y'all are over had you started earlier. The $500,000 budget amendment that we just made would have been, and would have been something that y'all would have picked up earlier on as architects were designing things that were not feasible within the budget that we were working on. So that's where I think you bring and can bring a lot of value by starting from the very beginning. And so I'm just trying to make sure that at least my head is around what we're asking of you.
Yeah, when we're looking at a design firm and we're making a recommendation, we're looking on who brings who is the best qualified, who brings the most qualifications. So I think if it's Mr. Butler, respectively, whom I don't know, if they're the most qualified based on what they've done to this point, what they've provided and their knowledge and their ability and their availability and all those things, then I see no reason not to continue down that path.
Now, is this just a decision that the owner's rep would make unilaterally, or is this you would just be coming back to us and making a recommendation, and all those contracts we would still get a chance to approve?
We work just purely as an advisor. At the end of the day, it's your money and it's your decision, and the taxpayers' money and their decision. We're just doing the fact finding and the digging and bringing you the options and a recommendation from our perspective. At the end of the day, it's your decision, always.
Okay. Councilor Ellison.
Yeah, and I concur with your comments, Mayor. And for me, I'll just kind of put this out there. I think that if we do engage in an owner's rep, I've been more than pleased with your firm and what they've done on our other projects. So I'd be okay with going with them. I would just kind of wrap my head, maybe the others as well, around this process. So if we were to engage an owner's rep, and I think you made some great points about where in that process you do that, doing that with just the design, or and that percentage could be much smaller. So what would that look like if we gave staff direction? Would staff bring back a proposal after engaging with ACM to kind of talk through the logistics, and we can get a number and have a contract to review and kind of make a decision from there? Is that what would happen if we took that action?
I came back here to read the language of the agenda item to see what action could be taken. So yeah, we would come back with an agenda item to engage an owner's rep, whether that was AGCM or to start the process for bidding, at which point then very quickly once engaged, we'd have them sit down with Kaz, Mr. Butler, and bring back a plan set and a recommendation to the council.
Gotcha. And then I think he's given some good wisdom here today. I think it's kind of one of those things. We could go through a procurement process. Obviously, that's going to probably increase the amount of that design. We're not going to get the home cooking of CADs there with the $600,000. But still, I think quality is still the goal here with what we want to do. And I think it would be wise of us personally, in my opinion, to go forward with a project manager with this one.
Councilmember Rizzo.
Definitely, and if we go out to procurement, we're also looking at pushing this, further down time-wise. So I think right now, we've got a credible company that's done a great job for us in the past, and I think moving forward, I think we've got a good partnership there, so I think we're good.
So we can still, I know it's listed as update and discussion, but we can motion to direct you to bring something back, right? Correct. All right, so I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to bring back a contract engaging AGCM for owner's rep services related to the Kyle area senior zone.
Second.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Ellison. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, next up, agenda item number 12, a resolution of the City of Kyle, Texas, authorizing the city manager to coordinate with the Texas Department of Transportation for installation of sign at Interstate 35 and South 1626, prohibiting soliciting, begging activity directed at drivers using the city streets, et cetera. Chief Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Jeff Barnett, Chief of Police, for the record. We're asking your approval of a resolution tonight to allow us to negotiate with TxDOT to put up some signage along 1626 near Interstate 35 that will help us in enforcing a recent city ordinance that you passed. That was Ordinance 1149 that prohibited, amongst many things, begging from the streets and on our sidewalks that can become dangerous to our motoring and walking public. And this will simply allow us to work with TxDOT, since that is a TxDOT roadway, to put up some signage to help prohibit people from begging out in the median in front of HEB and Target in that middle area. Our number one accident location in the spring and summer, we have a lot of sports and athletic teams that want to go out and sell water and try to raise money for good causes. However, that's an extremely dangerous activity. We want to put up some signs to help prevent that and reduce officer response to that. We go out there quite often.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Questions, comments, motions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Tobias, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cales. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilmember Bradshaw.
Yeah. Hi, sorry, Chief. Are you putting one on the opposite side of 35 as well?
Yes, ma'am. Our intentions will be to work with TxDOT to cover both the east and the west side of Interstate 35 and put up signage that can impact both sides of the roadway. Yes.
Thank you.
My only question is there any consideration for the remainder of the streets on I-35 and medians, intersections like Center Street and I-35 as well?
Not that they're not under review constantly. However, at this time, this is the only major intersection, and that's based on the pure volume of people that go out and solicit in that particular area.
Mm-hmm.
We think we can manage the others because it's a few times a year. 1626 and Interstate 35 is many times throughout the year, and that tends to be our location.
What would be the harm if you're going to be engaging and having them put up and going ahead and getting Center Street done as well?
We could certainly do it, absolutely. We just don't have the number. We haven't had many people. Now, could this inadvertently force people to look for the new location? So you're right, that would be a good idea. There would be nothing wrong with that, and it may help save us from coming back in the future.
Does anybody have any objections to amending and putting signs up on Center Street as well?
Not at all.
I'd like to make a motion to amend to include Center Street and I-35.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion to amend? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries 7-0. So now we have them both up. We still have the item here. Is there anyone have any more questions or comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, agenda item number 13, consider a request by Nitro Swimming to grant a special exception for parking on property located within Plum Creek PUD. Speaking of swimming pools.
Right. Will Atkinson for the record, city planner. Thank you all for listening to what we have for y'all tonight. Nitro Swim is going to be a project that's going to be a large aquatic facility over in Area 10 in the Plum Creek PUD up on 1626. And as we started going through the development process with them and the site plan review, just the initial items, we realized that the Plum Creek PUD does not actually specify parking ratios for aquatic facilities. The zoning district allows them, but we
didn't have a way to tell them what they could and could not do. So there is a process to move forward, and it's for City Council to grant a special exception for the parking ratios that they have proposed. What they have proposed, it makes sense. I've been looking at parking ratios for 5.5 years. There's no red flags. I believe it is an adequate amount, and we ask that y'all approve the parking ratios, or with a special exception. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you have the map to put up?
Yes, I'll put up the site plan real quick. Bear with me just a moment. Just a moment. There we go. There we go.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councilman Rizzo.
Yeah, Mayor, this question is Will, Councilman Rizzo for the record. Will, so I was looking at the backup material for a facility this side. It usually requires 405 parking spaces. Is that correct? Is what I saw on the backup material, and we're looking at doing 305, so 100 less.
So the maximum would be 405. So the way the parking ratios works are there is a minimum set typically, and then within the Plum Creek PUD, you can multiply that by 1.5 to get a maximum. So for what they're proposing, it fits in between their minimum and maximum.
So it's an in-between is what they're asking for.
Yes,
So
sir.
I noticed they were going to do, what is it, national events as well, sporting events where they do competition. People come from all over the nation. Do we have something else that, in case we have overflow parking in the area, would be able to absorb that?
Not specifically with this project, but there is a way forward that we can, where parking lots can be designed and built if found necessary within the Plum Creek PUD. Now, I don't pretend to know the entire project for this, for all the other lots in the area that's going to be built. So I don't know what contracts Plum Creek has taken into account for who they're going to be selling them to. But for what they've shown us, it seems to make sense in the parking ratios.
Okay, I'm going to trust you on that. All right.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Councilman Tobias.
Okay, thank you. So again, this facility is probably going to bring in tournaments, correct?
As far as I'm
Possibly, or
aware.
meets. Okay, I see that there's only 8 ADA spaces available. I just went to 2 competitions with my daughter. She's a cheerleader. And some of those facilities ran out of those parking spaces really fast. And saw a couple of vans had to circle around many times to park farther away. And the person actually had a walker. So they're going to design this facility itself, but I'm just wondering if there's an option to where there's going to be more wheelchair accessibility or more ADA parking spaces. Because I only see it like in the very front. I don't know if there's going to be in the back. Because I'm looking at people who have to use walkers or wheelchairs, and they would have to go all the way around from what I'm seeing in this facility here. Do you know by chance if they would be considering adding additional more?
We can ask them to do so. We can have a conversation after the fact. You can always add more. That's not a problem typically. From a general rule of thumb, and I don't pretend to know all the details behind ADA parking spaces, but they have to be clustered around the closest primary entrance.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Councilmember Flores-Kell.
Thank you. I have a few questions. My first question is going to be, do you know how many parking spaces Walmart has?
I know what the parking ratio is, but I do not know how many parking spaces they have. It's 1 to 250.
Okay, I'm trying to get a good idea of what 304 parking spaces looks like. And my next question is, how did you figure out that this was a sufficient number?
I did rely on the professional experience of the requester. And also Nitro Swim, which also has a facility up in Bee Caves, and based on the parking ratios that they had up there. So this is a copy and paste essentially of the parking ratios that they've used.
Okay, have you been to Bee Caves?
I have not.
Okay, the parking spaces are about this big. They're teeny, teeny, tiny. And it's not fun to go in, and it's not fun to like go shopping or go eating. Parking is always a problem. So I am hesitant, knowing that there's going to be national competitions in this area, to say, nope, we're going to go ahead and waive the minimum amount and, you know, let you build, 100 less than is required. And one of the things that did it for me was the Bee Caves example. And if that's what we're going off of, it's going to be a hard no for me, because I've been there and parking is never an enjoyment. So, and I wish it was a little bit more strategic than just that we went off another area. It's not an area that I'm fond of, but yeah, thank you for your answers.
It's my pleasure. If I may, the parking spaces will meet the minimum requirements from a dimensional standpoint for Plum Creek, and I don't know what the parking dimensions are for Bee Cave. In this specific case, there are no stated minimums or maximums. There's no minimums set aside for parking ratios for an aquatic facility. So we had to use, to the best of our ability, outside experience to pull it from.
So what are they asking for? If there's no minimums, what are they asking for a waiver from?
They're asking for a special exception from City Council to grant the parking ratios that they've requested.
Otherwise, I'm sorry, what would they do? How many would they have?
We don't know, because there's not something in the code to state the minimum. So
what I think I'm hearing you say is, if we voted no to this because we didn't like the number, they would have nothing. They would have the ability to do no parking.
Right.
Okay. So they're not asking to lower the amount. They're asking, is this the right amount? Because there is no particular allocation at this point.
Okay.
Because it's an aquatics facility, which
Then
isn't
I
in the
really
PUD.
feel like we need a better example of like, this is just a made-up number pulled out of the air. In comparison to Bee Caves, I think this should be brought back with a little bit more investigation as far as like, if we say no, what's the alternative for them? And we also need to make sure, since we are going to be doing national events, that we represent Kyle in the best way possible, and people are going to want to come here and do those events. And parking is a big deal. Now, maybe you do that research and we find that this is the right number, but just going off of what Bee Caves does, and I don't know if that's sufficient. And you know, I know you say parking lots can be built, but I'm a firm believer in doing it right the first time. My theory is always you could do it right or you could do it right now, but you can't have both. So if they're willing, I mean, is it even built yet? Like, if we can come back and look at this again?
I believe so, yes.
So while we bring the applicant up for some answers, there's several things I want to state here.
Yeah.
We'll be nice.
All right, so just a few things to answer those questions. One is a typical stall has to be 9 by 18 in Kyle. So we're not going to narrow the width here to accommodate more or less stalls. So the ability to access a stall will be the same as it would be at a grocery store, for example. Nitro Swimming has 3 locations. They've got Bee Cave, Cedar Park, and one at Fort Wayne. And this ratio is made up of the number of spaces that they need. They run big tournaments in each. So per their multiple years of experiences, they've just determined that this is what they need for their facility. And finally, this will be in a vibe spot. So we're working on parking ratio requirements that would allow golf carts in lieu of parking. So we're hoping that we'll actually get more vehicle traffic in here based on the different multiple modes, coming into these parking stalls. One more point is that the adjacent uses are also what I'll call tournament destination, anticipated destinations. So there will be additional parking immediately adjacent to the on-site parking here for overflow. And we're hoping that we will have shared parking throughout this whole area.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell a story. I was at 5 Mile Dam week before, which is a city-county project, and there was a tournament there, and there were about 100 vehicles without parking spots. So your question is not lost on me. I certainly don't think that government always has the right answer either, because not only were there not enough spots, there were officers out there ticketing everyone parking on the right-of-way. So that was pretty fun to watch. It's just crazy. So if you want to state your name for the record, and then talk to us about how you arrived at the number and whether or not, in your opinion, it will be sufficient for crowd surges and et cetera.
Yeah, sure, no problem. For the record, my name's Allison Kenna. I'm the civil engineer representing Nitro Swim for the Plum Creek Nitro Swim location. I will say that I have not done a ton of research necessarily on swim meets, and so did rely on two things, I think, to come up with the ratio that we're proposing. And the first being feedback from Nitro for what they typically provide at their facilities based on their experience, running large swim meets and events and things like this. And then the other one being trying to look around at the nearest local city that maybe would have a parking ratio in their code that we could apply to this situation, since, as you stated very helpfully, that we're not asking for an exception from the code. The code is silent on the parking ratio for something like this. And so we also tried to go to the effort of trying to make sure that we were coming up with something that made sense and something that would function for the facility. Ironically, we were actually a little bit worried that you wouldn't let us have the number we're asking, and so it's actually the opposite reaction of you wanting to make sure that there's enough and that we don't actually need more. So the city of Bee Cave, and I don't have my letter in front of me, but my memory is that the city of Bee Cave has in their development code that a commercial pool would have, I think it's 5 parking spots per 100 square feet of pool and deck area. And so if we just apply that, thank you. I don't know who pulled that up. If we just apply that to our proposed floor plan and our square footage of proposed pool and decking area, it comes to some minimum, I believe, of 270. And then because the code in the PUD allows us to increase that up to 150% of the minimum to establish a max, that puts us at the 400. And so talking with Nitro, they typically have actually less than that for their facilities. And so it felt like what they typically provide falls within that range with the 1 to 500 ratio.
So there are more spaces here than at your other facilities?
It actually tracks pretty closely if you just apply the ratio to the square footage of the pool decking, and then also the water itself. I also wanted to say that I believe the architect has said that we're planning for, I want to say it's 540 spectators is the maximum amount that the bleachers can support. And so it would be, if that helps, it's 540 spectators, and then of course you have the coaches and people in the warm-up pool and the staff and participants and stuff like that. So if that helps also put a number of people in your mind.
That's if you're completely packed out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions?
No, I was just wondering if they would be considered, if we're looking at it, to adding just a couple of more ADA compliant spaces in the front, especially I see, like I said, down here on the bottom you do, but maybe up on top, if a consideration to add more, or just a couple more. I mean, I've been to meets before already, and again, this past weekend, they fill up pretty fast, and probably elderly or grandma want to come see, somebody at the meet, but then the parking could be an issue to where they won't be able to have spaces. It's just a consideration.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think we'd be open to talk about that, certainly.
Is there do we have the ability to weigh in on that with this variance or with this vote on whether or not ADA minimum spaces?
there's certain parking ratios that you need for ADA compliance. Oh, excuse me. There's, and I don't remember what they are offhand, but there's certain minimum ratios you need to have for ADA spaces for any commercial project. And so if they have the minimum, that's what we can enforce. But if they add more, that's always a good thing.
So you're asking for a special exception for parking, and so I'm wanting to know if in the granting of the special exception, we can put a requirement that a certain number of parking spaces, in addition to the 8 that we've seen on the proposal, can be set forth. Okay, we may have to come back on that one. Councilman Rizzo, do you have some comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to end with a comment and say, thank you for thinking of Kyle and bringing this facility here. When we're trying to give our residents different amenities, our children, other options, to exercise, it's great to have a facility like yours coming to Kyle. I think I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing the kids being out there and getting some exercise and learning how to compete. And it's just a great facility coming to Kyle. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Flores Kale.
Thank you. Before I forget, I don't think we could do this at this time, but I would like to see the city do something about this so it never happens again. And so, there's no direction given. I would just like to see, instead, like she stated, she said the code is silent, I thought that was great. The code is silent. And so if that's something that the city could work on, that would be great. For future, yeah.
Plum Creek it is. This is a Plum Creek PUD issue, so.
Is it
that's a fair request.
Okay. Just in particular Plum Creek PUD, or is it any PUD, or?
The Plum Creek PUD specifically.
Right, so if they were going to be putting this facility somewhere other than Plum Creek, there would already be standards that we would have in place about how many parking spaces they could have, but the PUD is silent on this, so it gives us, it's kind of nice in a way, because it gives us a chance to look at it, whereas we don't always do that, but you're right,
Yes, moving forward. Thank you.
That's a fair question.
You can place those conditions you're considering on the approval. You can require the additional parking spots to be added.
Okay, Councilmember Tobias, did you have a number that you were thinking about?
If we could maybe just add 4, maybe up on the top, to where you could have it. I don't know if this is north. Yeah, this is north and west, or east-west. Maybe to where you have it up on the top, just 4 on top, and then you've got your 8 on the bottom. Just to give people the option to be able to go, if that's possible.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 13 with the requested parking areas.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Councilman Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Flores Kale, that we approve agenda item number 13 and increase the number of handicap spots from 8 to 12, and the additional 4 would be on the north side. Is that the way you heard that? Everybody in agreement on
Would
that?
that be the top entrance to the
Can we
facility?
say plan north? So, because I think it's, if I'm looking at it
I
right,
don't
I think
know.
it's the east side of the building. Yes, it is. Thank you. The east side of the building.
All right,
So you have them on the north and just additional 4.
So
on
the
opposite
bottom is
side.
west and the top is east?
Yes.
All right, so to clarify, there we go, on the east side, opposite of where they're currently planned. Got all that, Jennifer? All right. I'm sorry. Any discussion on the motion?
I mean, I was just gonna say, I don't know, I guess I'm missing why we want to dictate exactly where, but I think adding additionally 4 is great. I don't know, do we want to get into the?
I'm just looking at the facility
either way.
itself. Maybe
ADA is going to dictate where those go.
Right.
So it's going to be by
So I was
doors and ramps.
that's it. It's just by ramps, by doors.
Or are you okay
To
to
wherever
let
they
them
feel it, even if
put
it's
them
just from wherever. Yeah,
I mean,
just-
I don't really
just
care.
additional-
To be honest with you.
I'm just looking
I
at
just
the
didn't know we were
entrance
gonna
of
dictate
where it
where.
would be at. Wherever's most feasible, just adding extra
I didn't
for
even know
people
we
to be there.
could.
Yeah, if there's a way maybe to write the item in a way that kind of gives us a little bit of latitude to put it where it'll be of the most benefit to the people who are going to be using the spaces.
Sure.
We definitely can think that through, and it's not a problem. I just was talking with the owner's rep over there, and I think the back entrance is more of like mechanical utility. It's not going to be
Right.
like a public entrance, and so probably near the front would make more sense, but we can put it where it'll be of the most benefit to the people who are going to use
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend the previous motion and remove the requirement that they be located in any particular area.
Second.
All right, that's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Rizzo. This is on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I want to agree with what Councilmember Rizzo said. We're really excited for y'all. So thank you for coming to Kyle. Thank you for working with us.
We will have an announcement forthcoming.
All right. All right, next up, agenda item number 14. First reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 41 of the City of Kyle, Texas for the purpose of modifying Section 41-136. The City of Kyle, Texas for the purpose of modifying site developments, townhomes. Man, that one's hard to read. So, yeah, wow. This item has a public hearing. Mr. Atkinson, can you please explain what that caption says? Townhomes.
Do you want to do the public hearing first, or do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Essentially, what it is, it's broken into two parts. We have what's the utility lot section and the townhome amendment. So utility lots is an addition to our subdivision code that's going to be extremely helpful for staff when reviewing subdivision code. Currently, our zoning code doesn't give staff latitude to have lots that are smaller than what the minimum dimensions are for the zoning district. Utility lots are where a developer could have a landscape lot that's not part of an easement on someone's property. They can have a separate lot, to make the entrance to their subdivision look nicer. It could also be a lot to create or to encapsulate an existing gas line easement if you want, where you can't build anyway. So it's, for the same reason, not going on someone's property. Looping water lines. The possibilities are endless, but they're all practical applications. So we're wanting to create this utility lot to just better facilitate our subdivision process. Any questions on that?
Utility lot? So who's going to maintain that?
It depends on, that's a good question, it depends. So for example, for a gas line easement, if it is created into a lot, the ownership could be transferred to the gas pipeline company, or it could be maintained by the HOA. It really depends on the internal side of things. And from a maintenance perspective, it's usually mowing, just so you're aware. When it's looping water lines inside the city limits for our water CCN, it would be us. We'd be owning the lot. And that way we could have direct control over it and be able to not have to go into people's yards and dig up those lines and mess with their lawn and flowers and stuff like that.
But as of now, we don't know who would maintain that?
It depends on, each project is specific. It really depends. Again, as an example, landscape lots, it would be owned probably by the main HOA, right? So we're not just gonna give a flat out approval and say you can put all these utility lots all over the subdivision. They have to be there for a reason. And we'll work with the developers to make sure we understand where they will put them and why they're putting them there.
And they'll decide where they go.
Yes.
And we'll just approve it.
Not without discussion.
Okay.
Because sometimes the reason it keeps popping up is for the examples that I've shown. Those are the three biggest examples. They could also be for pocket parks. They could be for trails throughout the properties, throughout the subdivision as well. So the possibilities are endless. However, they need to have a practical application to them as well.
I guess my fear is that we'll have these little lots that the city has to maintain. We have like a little lawnmower, because, a big riding lawnmower. It's only good for big spots. So I guess, I just want to make sure that we're not giving undue duties to our staff.
I hear you.
Is this something that we can like attempt to tackle now? Or do we, it just based like one-on-one basis, like as it comes, we deal with it? Is that how it works?
So early on, whenever we meet with developers, they'll show us their plans that they want for their lot layout. And it's a question that pops up quite frequently, whether we need to loop utility lines, or they're like, hey, there's a gas line easement coming through here. How do we put this together? And we'll let them know. We tell them, who the expectation is not going to be the city to maintain or own that lot. It should be the HOA, or in case of a gas line, it probably should be the gas companies. But where it's city utilities, we would maintain that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this similar to what we've done with other zoning types? We've addressed utility easements, municipal utility easements, and Lestrange, we've done variances, and the reason I'm asking, is this going to come up with other zonings? Is it because townhomes is not a zoning that we've approved in a long time, and this is the first one of these?
So, you're right. There's two separate updates to our code. One of them's in the subdivision code, and one of them's from townhomes. But they're not, for updating this amendment for the code, they're not related. But there is the potential that they could be. I'm not trying to confuse you.
Yeah.
So the utility lot specifically is just for where it's practical and it makes sense. They can have utility lots that are separate from people's residences.
I feel like I've voted on that multiple times since I've been here, is my question. Councilor Rizzo.
Yeah, just real quick, Will. So the utility lot, what it does is, right now, our crews go out and they drain a line, say it's a looping water line. They're doing it in somebody's yard. What this utility lot allows us to do is do it outside of somebody's preview. So it gives us that, safeguard our employees not in somebody's yard, somebody's not gonna get mad. We're actually, clean out our system that route. But my question to you is, why are we responsible, even if it's a utility, it still services the subdivision? Why are we responsible for the maintenance? That should be HOA, or it should be the builder. It shouldn't be the city.
It's right.
Because it's a utility lot, so it services that subdivision. So we shouldn't be required to pay for that. The taxpayer shouldn't have to go mow that when it's servicing that utility, that PUD, PID, or subdivision, whatever it is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jump in.
I did not specifically include related to maintenance on city-owned utility lots because I wanted it to be able to have the flexibility when we're discussing it internally, if the HOA should be able to maintain or have to mow it or what have you. But if we need to add that to the code to give it more specificity, that's fine.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that route. If we were going to approve this, I'd feel a lot better if we did that.
So I'll add to that. I think, at least for the last 6 years or so, every new subdivision that has been approved that has utility lots, the burden has fallen through agreement on the HOA to maintain those lots. So I don't know an area really where the city is maintaining those.
That's great. So, but if we put writing.
Correct. No, it's a good suggestion, being a part of the code. We've had to do it in the DA each time.
Thanks. Thank you, Will. Thank you for your explanation as well.
It's my pleasure.
All right, this item has a public hearing. If there are no objections, I'm going to open up the public hearing now. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Pervez? Tracy? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. It is now closed. Any other discussion on this item?
So he still needs to explain the townhome part of the change as well.
Okay.
Sure. In terms of townhomes, we want to diversify our housing stock in Kyle for housing types. We have primarily single-family detached, and we have multifamily, garden style mostly, and not much else. So staff has been pushing for several years now, anytime someone wants to come in, to try to do townhomes where it's appropriate in the city. And we have a few large tracts that are already zoned for it. And when the architects and the developers start getting into the weeds of the R1T zoning district, they realized that the garage size of minimum of 480 square feet is rather large for a townhome. Townhomes are supposed to be a medium-high urban density perspective at about 10 units per acre, and with a minimum lot width of 22 feet wide. And if you're looking at 480 square feet, that leaves about 2 feet of space for a front door if it's front-loaded. It still makes it difficult from a cost perspective to make it work on the pro forma, and if they can't make it work, and I understand money's not everything from our perspective, but if they can't make it work, then they won't build the townhomes, which is what we're trying to push. I've also edited the code to explicitly state that they can do alley-loaded design, because I do believe that is a preference of the city in terms of, especially when it comes to higher urban, more dense lots, to where you don't have a bunch of garages facing onto the street and breaking up the sidewalks and what have you. But they can also do front-loaded as well or side-loaded. And we also want to get rid, it's staff's preference that we get rid of the requirement for garages. Altogether. But it gives them the flexibility to build it and to build it out at a size that's suitable, that matches a townhome type development. It will not affect the parking ratios that they have to abide by. They still have to provide enough parking per the ratios that are built into our code already. So it's a matter of being more flexible with the design, but in what staff believes is the correct manner.
Thank you, Councilor Ellison. Now I understand the difference. That's why I was so confused on this item. Any discussion on this?
I think it was a great explanation, Will. I totally agree with it. I think that, you don't have to have a garage in a townhome. I think that we need more of that product here. I have a lot of residents that reach out to me that ask me for, that product, so I'm glad that we're making it possible to build here in Kyle. So, thank you.
So, you said that that each townhome is still required to have a number of parking spaces allocated. Is
Yes,
there
sir.
anything in the code that references what kind of surface that those, can it be crushed granite, or does it have to be impervious, or does it have to be, concrete, or?
There is a section in our code, and offhand I don't know what it is, but I know it essentially states asphalt, concrete, or permeable pavers, or any other pavement that's approved that's durable.
And we've had conversations in the past where in lieu of a garage, we've required, covered parking of some kind, so that there would be awnings or pergolas, some shade structures or different things, because has that been a conversation that anybody's has had about, or are we just saying for R1T, really, there's no garage required, just period, and they might have to just park in a driveway on the sun and that's it?
It would definitely be less expensive than building a garage, right? But no, we have not had specific conversations regarding an awning, a rear-loaded or front-loaded carport, if you will. But that might be worth looking at too, if it's something that y'all want added into the code.
Well, I'm just thinking developers might not build it unless we otherwise require for covered parking, so.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was actually going to make a suggestion about that, because that was my only concern when you were doing your explanation, is that if we don't specifically outline it, we had a previous agenda item, putting it into code, codifying that is important. So I would personally like to see if we could work something out with that. Like I said, just anything that would cover it, because I agree, just having that there, but I appreciate the effort in working out these townhomes, and so we can actually get builders to start supplying that.
Is this item under time crunch? Somebody waiting on?
The last conversation we had was with representatives of the Spooner Tract and the Waterstone, that right there. So, and they have a large number of townhomes. So it would be.
They've got time.
Right,
I'm just saying they're a long way away. They have to build a whole road and all kinds of stuff. So
Another 2 weeks to maybe try to bring
I
this
think
back and
think through from, if we're going to take an amenity away, how do we still keep something in there that's good for the residents? Councilor Rizzo.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 14, the first part of it, the ordinance amending the city's Texas purpose of modifying sections 41 through 136, the utility lots with the amendment of making sure the subdivision developer or HOA is required to keep it mowed. And I'd like to follow up the end of that motion with direction to staff to bring back the townhome ordinance.
Moved by Councilman Rizzo, seconded by Councilman Flores Kale, that we approve the portion of this item relating to utility lots and that we bring back the portion of this item related to townhomes and garages. Is there discussion on that motion? Are we allowed to break it up like that, Paige?
With the exception of the builders or the HOAs being responsible.
And with the HOAs being responsible as per the discussion, I apologize, yes. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we can't really finally pass it. It's strange to have two items with one public hearing that's first reading of an ordinance. I've just never seen it quite like that before. So I'm going to object. We'll bring it back at the next one just in case. All right, next up, agenda item number 15, consider and possible action to adopt the concrete washout standard detail attached to this item. Kathy Roker.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Kathy Raker, Stormwater Program for the record. After last council meeting, I was tasked with coming up with a concrete washout standard detail. The item says consider and possible action. We don't, I guess, typically bring standard details in front of council. I don't want to, because standard details are updated often, so I don't want to make a habit of actually having you all approve the standard detail, but it is attached in the backup material. One of the changes that we do recommend in our standard detail that's not typical is that we recommend prefabricated concrete washout containers. But other than that, it's pretty much a standard concrete washout. But it will make it so that there is a unified standard for all developers to follow. So unless y'all have any heartburn about the one that is in the backup material or comments.
You're just going to do it. But you don't want us to vote on it.
Y'all don't need to.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Councilor Forrest Kill.
I just want to say thank you. I love you. I love your heart. I love where you're at with thinking progressively about environmental issues that may not always be popular or cool. I give you a lot of props, and you have a lot of respect for me for doing that, because I know how it feels to be the one that people make fun of. But that's okay. That's okay, and I appreciate this. This was a great idea, and I love what you brought, and I think for the most part, it's stuff they're already supposed to be doing.
Correct.
We're just going to go ahead and enforce that.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 16, it's been requested that we have a discussion in executive session with the city manager. We can do that now. The other item that staff requested is the following one. If you want to take that one up now, and then we can go back and discuss 16 and then keep going. All right, agenda item number 17, discussion and possible direction on redesigning layout of council chambers to accommodate an ADA accessible lectern. Ms. Armbruster.
Samantha Armbruster, Director of Communications. So I'm here to talk about this box here. I hope it doesn't have his feelings hurt, but basically we think that it might be time to upgrade it. We've looked into having a ADA accessible lectern, and in doing research, we've determined that really the only way for council chambers to accommodate one is for us to relocate where this lectern currently sits to where Mr. Sellers and our city attorney sit during these meetings. So that's where it would be wired in. So imagine someone's giving a presentation like I am right now, or coming to give citizen comment. They would be standing behind a lectern over there addressing council. If they were presenting to the council chambers, they would also present from there as well, looking this way, or they could choose to get up on the dais and present from there as well. Obviously, when we came into starting this research, it was about getting an ADA lectern and how that worked. There would be some other benefits to upgrading. Right now, we don't have the ability for someone to bring a photo or document and have a document camera, so that's something that we would be looking to upgrade as well. There's aesthetic reasons for it. Also, in the new location, it would have a dedicated camera, and a fringe benefit would be that whenever we have big groups like we did earlier with the Citizens Police Academy and we want to get a photo, this wouldn't be in the way. So we want to have that conversation with council, see if you have any questions, if you're comfortable with that, before we move forward with the purchase of the lectern.
Questions, comments? Councilman Rizzo.
Yeah, thanks a lot for bringing this forward. First of all, I'm glad we're looking at being ADA compliant, but I'm not crazy about the layout. There's several things in this layout that really bother me. One of the things is that when citizens come up here, they expect to see us all. Having that lectern over on the side doesn't allow that person talking to look at everybody up on this council. We're beholden to the citizens, and I believe that that lectern is put in the middle for a reason. It's there so that they can look each and every one of us in the eye and make sure that we're doing our jobs right. We move over to the side, we're taking away from that. So I'm all for getting the ADA. I'm okay with having something big there, and as long as the citizens get to make sure their voices are heard. And so I'm not crazy about the layout, so I'm going to say no on the layout.
Can you give us why it can't be in the middle?
So it's really the clearance of the approach and being able to turn and get out easily in a wheelchair. So that's the limitation of it being here, and exactly why we're bringing it to council for consideration is to make sure you're comfortable moving forward.
And following up with that, I think there's a lot of room. We could bring the lectern up a little bit and give everybody a lot of room, but moving over to the side now, if you got somebody on the other side, you're having to bring them all the way across. Are we going to dedicate certain spaces for it as well? You know, are we going to take out a couple of chairs to allow for, wheelchairs to come in as well? So it's something that we need to consider, but really, I'm not crazy about the layout that's proposed. I'd love to see it stay the way it is, and I hope it does stay that way because I think the citizens deserve it.
I might recommend this front row of chairs. It's 4 seats. It has been an issue before with this table in this location, so it would add more room to get around, and then we could just kind of pull the lectern over just slightly, make space.
Maybe just one that's more easy to move than that one too, because I don't think that one moves very well.
Well, and one of the reasons it doesn't move well is it is wired in, so even if we were to get a new upgraded, we're still going to need to be over one of these circular boxes, which there's one over there as well. But
can we look into getting a wireless?
And I wish Matt was here from IT, but when we were looking at different options, the issue with the wireless is that the audio and the video isn't quite as committed, and so there's always an issue, or there could be an issue with the quality in not only broadcast but also in the chambers if it's not wired in.
Correct.
Okay, because I'm with Councilmember Rizzo. I like to have them in the middle. I'm also with Scott. I think we could take out some of those chairs. I think there's just a variety of things that we can do, so we're not moving the podium and moving everything else around. I think the chairs are a big issue. I also agree that I'm all for ADA compliant and ADA accessible. I just like the podium in the middle. I like to be able to look, and I think coming over here would be a little bit tougher, and it's just really just us three that would be in close proximity. So I feel like no as well.
That's great feedback, and and I would love to hear if there is comfort with us moving those chairs, because that could give us more room and allow us to keep it here. So this is a perfect opportunity to have that discussion.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great idea, Scott. Thank you for bringing that forward. Thank you for bringing this. Thank you for thinking about the ADA people. I mean, I'm all for that concept of being more inclusive, allowing everybody to come and participate. But at that same time, I guess when I saw it, it kind of bothered me because it feels like the citizens should be number one in our priority list, and allowing them to interact with every single one of us on this dais is probably the most important thing to me. So I guess it's the layout that I have a little bit of an issue with, but the ADA compliance, taking out a couple of rows of shares, I'm good with it. But thank you for bringing this forward, though, Samantha.
Absolutely. Okay,
Any other comments?
thank you.
All right, so I figure we should go into exec. We still have the other item to deal with, plus this item, and then Councilmember Flores Kale's item is just related to council, so we can let staff leave. They don't have to wait for that. So, all right, executive session. Everyone wants to read it?
Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting. The City Council may now convene into executive session pursuant to any lawful exception contained in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including any or all of the following topics. Agenda item 16. Do you want me to read it out? And
What's
all.
the other one? Scott? Proposed TERS. TERS and Pretty Lakes.
Pending or contemplated litigation or to seek the advice of city attorney pursuant to section 551.071 Prairie Lakes Development Agreement, proposed city TERS.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. There was no action taken during executive session. There will be no action taken now. Next up, agenda item number 18, discussion of city trips. Councilman Flores Kale.
Thank you. So, when I first joined council, I wasn't too sure what the whole situation entailed, I guess. And right away, there was talk of going to this vision workshop, and I knew it was really, some people, residents, got mad because we were going and it was controversial, but I quickly realized after that the trips that we take are controversial, and I also learned that there's no process for it. So I just requested a list of trips taken just to see how it pans out and figure out what it is that we're doing on these trips and how we can benefit them. So really what I'm asking for is just for us to create some kind of process where we decide collectively who's going on what trip, where they're going, why, and maybe when they get back, they could even discuss it. And I've been told by some people that they don't feel like that is necessary. And my theory on that is if you're spending taxpayers' money, it's absolutely necessary to discuss that trip where you were supposed to have learned something, at least share it with the people on the dais. So just looking overall at the trips made, there's some people that have taken like 7 trips and then other people that have taken 1. And these are trips that are taken outside of like a vision workshop or a TML class that I think those kind of things don't really have to be discussed. But some places that people have gone is like Oklahoma, Indiana, to include myself, Florida, Washington, D.C., Nashville. And I did not know about any of these trips, to include the original Carmel trip that was taken, I think, a week or 2 before the one that we took. And when I say we, I mean me and I think it was Dex and Robert all went to Carmel, Indiana. So we all learned, I think, a great deal from those trips. I know I learned about roundabouts and how great I thought they were afterwards, because initially I was not feeling it. But then seeing it in action and seeing it work, I felt like, okay, this is great. We learned from it. But I think since we all kind of went at different times, that didn't need to be discussed because we all had a good idea of what was going on. with that said, when there's trips taken to places like Washington, D.C., I would love to sit and pick people's brains and figure out what it is they learned and how they benefited from that trip. And right now, there's just not a process for that. So I'm not the one to make these kind of processes and kind of not know what it looks like. I would like everybody's input on how we should proceed equally, fairly, and be able to openly communicate about the trips that we take and share the information with not just the residents, but with each other. And so we can all learn things that, maybe Tobias is at work and he can't go, or maybe I'm at work and I can't go. Nonetheless, I still want to know what Washington's like. I still want to know what you guys talked about, and I still want to know what you learned. So I asked Scott to put it on here so we can hopefully create something that has some kind of, normalcy regarding the process and how we take these trips.
Councilman Rizzo.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I think I see where you're going with this. I think, first of all, let me say it's not really a trip, because when I look at a trip, I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about going and visiting locations. It's more like going away to visit a location for business, and that's why I know you didn't mean anything by trip, but
I didn't say vacation.
yeah, well, kind of, yeah. It's I just don't see it as a trip. I see it as a working meeting usually, but I see where you're going when council does go on these work meetings. They do pick up valuable information. I think what Councilmember Kell is trying to say is, how do we share that? How can we share that valuable information? I think that's where she's getting at with this, is how are we able to share the process or whatever information we picked up on these not vacation, what do you call it, work sessions? No, you said vacation. You said vacation, so let's stay in my head. Well, these work sessions, so how do we share that information? Because some of the knowledge we pick up is very valuable, and I think, council could really benefit from it. Everyone on council could benefit from it. How do we create a process where we can share that? I know people are quick to knock some of the stuff that cities do down, but honestly, the information you pick up in speaking with other leaders, people who have done it before, is really invaluable. I mean, it's valuable. The value on it has no price on it, because it's great. The good thing is we do things at an economical level, but still, how do we share that with council so that knowledge doesn't stay with a collective few? It resonates throughout council. I think that's what she's looking for, is a process where we're able to share that information, be a city manager or something like that, because there's a lot of information that, I picked up, when I was in Indiana. Again, I was a big proponent against roundabouts. To see them work at that level, it was very mind-blowing, but there's got to be a process somewhere we could do that, and I think that's where she's reaching out to staff to find a way to create a process where we can share that.
Really not to be a cop-out at all. This is one of those council negotiated policies for council by council. So, but I will say that, every time that we have gone on an exploratory trip to see either roundabouts or different zoning uses, talk to lobbyists, et cetera, we have come back with an incredible amount of wisdom and knowledge. And so the trip itself may not be shared in like a travel log, but it's shared in the results that we bring forward. So the Vibe is a great example. It's a really amalgam of the Carmel trips and the Peachtree City trips. And the task force were on those trips. We came back and we created something that was super special, right? We came back and developed our roundabout policy. We've talked about our TERS policy. So every one of these opportunities to go isn't necessarily come back and travelogue. It's we go back and we immediately start putting it into some sort of project or plan or form of action.
Councilman Bradshaw.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Rizzo, for clarifying. And I like what you were saying. I think that I'm not necessarily I don't think that we need to go in the extreme of having a policy or process in place, but I definitely think just improving on our relationships with one another and having those conversations could be a good way to help share that information.
I agree with you, but we're held to a quorum, so I think that's where I struggle a little bit with it, is, we don't want to break the quorum as well. So is there a way that we can share this knowledge? And I'm thinking maybe there's a way where council members come back, take notes, and share it maybe with the city manager or something, and we're able to bring that message out to everybody. And that's kind of how I was looking at it, is a way to bring that knowledge or what results from, that juncture were, you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of how I look at it.
So there are different kinds of trips that we take. So one trip might be TML or the National League of Cities or a planning conference. City manager's gone on excursion trips with GSMP or the Austin Chamber of Commerce. There have been city coordinated trips to excursions to other cities that include staff, some that just are council focused with council objectives. And then not every trip involves an overnight stay. So I saw the list as well, and it was very incomplete because there are multiple trips that I've been on over the course of that time where I drove and came back, but certainly gained insight there. It just didn't reach the level of a flight or a hotel. So it is complicated. My thought of delineating might be to say, if we're talking about any kind of official excursion where the city council is going with staff for a specific reason and only a certain number of council members can go, that we could create some kind of, rule, whether formal or informal, to say that, excursion trips, we can give summaries of findings or facts from those trips. But to say that if we're going to a conference in particular that we have to come back and report to council, I don't think that that's really something that we have to do. There's new elected official orientation that's coming up, I think, in February, that I just saw the email. I don't expect that the council should have to be briefed for individuals who went there. But if we're taking a trip to Raleigh or something like that, to see particular, items of interest to the council as it relates to future decisions, then there's no wrong. We already pretty much do that anyway. We do very openly share about those trips, and I think the majority of the trips have been mentioned publicly. But we could formalize that in a way of providing an item on the agenda where someone on the trip or there's a discussion about what took place and what was learned. I don't see a problem with that. So those are my thoughts. Councilmember Tobias.
I think the only trip or work trip that I've taken was the Peachtree. And I did gain a lot of knowledge because from somebody who came from Austin and wanted to look at finally getting a hike and bike trail, it was really a great experience for me to go see another city and another state on how their trail system worked. And we did bring back a presentation of what we did and what we learned, and we all gave our own perspectives of that, okay? So there are trips that may have happened, but I see what we're getting at is if we're going to be going on these excursions or so forth, a report needs to be made to the council and brought to the public. You and I and Councilman Elson, of course, we all took our own separate cars, but we went to go visit the Hayes County Women's Shelter, correct? So are we going to report on that as well, even though it's just down the road? So how specific, like Mayor Mitchell says, how specific are we going to be then? If it's a conference or a class I decided to take, like I did back in July with the TML overview of the legislation, am I going to be required to talk about everything that we spoke about there? So I guess it's just in parameters of what we want to do and decide what trips would be considered something to where we need to bring forward. Or if it's something for me to take a training class, do I need to let everybody know, hey, I took a training class at TML and this is what I learned? Is that kind of the direction we need to go? If not, then let's design a plan to where if somebody's going to end up going to Corpus, or we're going to travel to Phoenix or some other state, then we'll just make it on the city's manager's report. This was the trip that we took, and this is what we learned, and this is the people who came, and this is how long we stayed. And if we're going to get really detailed on that, maybe that's where we need to go at.
All right, thanks. So here's my deal. And I was very clear in the beginning that I said I'm not talking about TML trips, and I'm not talking about like the vision workshop. I'm being specific. I'm not sure why people are pretending like I didn't say that. What I'm talking about, and I'm just going to try to cool down because I'm getting really annoyed at the fact that everybody is making this a much bigger deal than I originally thought it was. Because I
don't think we're trying to. I think we're trying to.
Well,
agree with what
the
you're saying.
same point has been beaten down 3 times, and I addressed that in my initial opening when I said, "Hey, I'm not talking about TML, and I'm not talking about the vision workshop. What I'm talking about is when people go to, for example, Fort Myers, Florida, and I didn't know." Or when people go to Washington, D.C. twice and I didn't know. Or when I learned that everybody went to, or 3 people went to Peachtree City, Georgia, and I didn't know. I mean, as a council member, I should at least know that people are going. And if I want to ask questions, then maybe during Scott's manager's report, he can be open for questions. And so that way we all get to talk about it. Because if 3 people are going, again, I cannot go ask you guys.
That's what I think we're trying to drive there. I think we're trying to come to that same conclusion with you. So,
which is
so here would be a proposal. An excursion is defined as any trip where we take that includes a hotel or a flight that is not a destination that involves a conference. In that event, the expectation is that the city manager would bring forward a report outlining the trip that was taken, or if the city manager was not a part of that trip, it would be on the responsibility of whichever council member brought that forward as a policy to bring it up publicly and discuss the trip that was taken and what was learned. That's what that's literally what I've been trying to drive to in this conversation.
Yes, and I wish that was spoken in the beginning. Additionally, I would also like to figure out how we're going to collectively pick people to go on trips. Because again, when someone's taking double, triple, more than other people, and it's not like I was asked and I said no, it was just never brought up. So I was told prior to, well, why don't you just ask? And I said, how do I ask if I don't know? Now, this is not a meeting that, I mean, I know certain people take meetings every year. I'm not talking about that, because I can look that up. I could Google it. I can't Google, hey, when is Robert Rizzo going to be in Florida? When is that trip being taken? I don't understand why, first of all, I even have to bring this up, because I feel like we're a team we work collectively, right? So why would we not be choosing who's going on these trips? Why would we not have a discussion on it?
I think those were part of when those task force were operating, and again, we no longer have them. But I guess going forward is the recommendation that Mayor Mitchell said. Mm-hmm. If anybody is going to go on a trip or go on a excursion, that he would bring it up during the manager's meeting. And as far as choosing, it could be just who's available. Going from there, if it may have to affect their district or just their area, or if somebody is interested, and I think it just could be a matter of that. Because I know with my work schedule, it's sometimes very hard for me to pretty much make meetings after, actually before 2 o'clock, and to be off air, and I understand that. So I don't really dwell on a lot of like, oh my, well, I wish I could have gone to the trip, but I do my best. But if I can't go, then I'm not able to go.
I'm right there with you. I have to get up and go to work, so I'm not able to take trips, but I'd like to at least be offered or have an opportunity to go to Washington at least once to see, what that our lobbyists can provide for us. I think everybody might want to go. I don't know. I don't know how it was chosen that the people who went, I don't know how that process looked. So that's why I brought this up, because I think to be fair to everybody sitting on here, that we make some kind of process, or I don't even know what to call it, because I don't think it's a process. I think there should be something in place so everybody gets that opportunity. And this was a real concern of mine during the budget workshop. And your response was, anyone that wants to go should be able to go. And I agree. I was like, that is a great idea. But that has not been the opportunity.
Further discussion?
Do we need to make a motion? I mean, I think we all collectively agree that if there are trips taken, it's at least mentioned in the manager's report. Like, hey, Yvonne went to St. Louis. This, she learned this, and just kind of do a little synopsis. And I'm going to be honest, part of this also has to do with being a little more transparent to the residents. I think what we do when we go on these trips is a big deal, and I think we learn and we gain information. But when we don't talk about it, some people think that we're being sneaky. I mean, all of us, everybody sitting up here. They think just because we don't talk about it that we're doing something wrong. So part of breaking that stigma is just being forward with it. And I think, Scott doing it during his manager's report is an excellent opportunity. Nobody's biased. It's just Scott giving a little recap. So as far as trips taken, I think that's the way to go. As far as choosing, I don't know. I think Tobias had a great idea when he said, maybe if it affects your district or whoever is available, anything other than just taking, a name out of a hat and say this is what it's going to be. I would like to see some kind of guidelines for that. Or we could just do alphabetical order. and then you just go around. I don't know. I'm just trying to make it fair. I'm not trying to be ugly. And, no doubt, I'm sure people are going to be like, you guys shouldn't be taking trips anyways. But the truth of the matter is, I know the trips that we've taken, we have all learned something. And so I'm willing to take that feedback. And if someone's really that upset, then feel free to sit down and talk to me about what I learned.
Scott, could we just authorize or just give direction to staff to where going forward any trips that are made or excursions that they just be added to the manager's report and with just a brief overview? And as far as the process of who goes, it could be just a open call, who's available, or just, I don't know, I'm giving suggestions, so.
I kind of like the report that Council Member Tobias and the mayor have mentioned. Something quick, and if a council member wants to share a little bit more, he's welcome to, not obligated. But having the report really helps, just to give us, since I know that I like sharing. Anytime I learn anything new, coming back, and it's exciting, and being able to share that information would be great. And I guess the diocese is probably the only place we can do it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I just want to hit on the picking part of the trips, because I think some trips happen where there's certain people who are asked to go. And then there's some trips that happen that are council initiated. I took a trip last December to a magical place called Edmond, Oklahoma. And I went there with Councilman Ellison, and we went there on our own. And it was a fact-finding mission because the vendor that bought the same Christmas lights as us also bought for their Christmas festival in Edmond. And they had received a lot of social media buzz for that, and that's how we found out about them. And we decided to go up there because we had a small window of time to do that, and to go and learn about what they were doing with their Christmas lighting. We met with their mayor pro tem, their mayor, several council members, members of the Chamber of Commerce, and we brought back a lot of information. But instead of just sharing information and making it kind of a show and tell, that's not what the trips are about for me. They're about bringing back deliverables to the city of Kyle. And so I don't have anything against talking about a trip after it happens, but sometimes strategically it's not the best idea to do right away. But what does matter is that the citizens get something for the dollar on those trips. And so we brought back plans that we shared with our Parks Department, and we even have ongoing conversations happening with Edmond, Oklahoma, as we are purchasing more and more lights from the same vendor, opportunities to become a sister city when it comes to sharing in these big 3D ornaments that we've purchased for this year. And we talked with them about that, where you have these really huge ornaments, these 3D ornaments that stand in the lawns, and after a while they become stale. And so we talked to them about opportunities where we would buy a certain kind, they would buy a certain kind, and after a few years we could trade them out and use them, and then you have new looks, but we both purchase them the same way, which is we buy them outright, we don't lease them, and we get them at the cheapest price possible. We also learn what they're paying the vendor for that, so that we can make sure we get the best price. So there's like a multitude of things that you can get from them, but what I'm saying is just talking about it doesn't make the trip okay, in my book. Bringing back deliverables, learning something, and then delivering on that is what matters for the city. And so that was a one-night trip. I think we did that in like 24 hours, Councilmember Ellison. We visited 2 cities, and we did Edmond and was like Chickasha, something like that. But great trip, learned a lot, and December 1st, you were gonna see the fruit that was born from that trip.
I like that story. I did. That was like to know the background of why we're getting our ornaments in our square. I mean, that's nice. And so again, I don't see any harm in us just discussing that. It took you less than, 4 minutes? And I learned a lot?
Correct. But what I'm saying is the week after we got from that trip is completely different than almost a year later. And the
Right.
deliverable of that and going through the process. And remember, you don't get everything right off the bat. And sometimes you have to bring things back, talk to certain council members, but you got to be strategic in your planning for what you're doing. And so, I don't think any of us should take wasted trips. I don't think any of us do. This is not a council that I've ever seen do that. They take the trips with meaning and they bring something back. And I've seen you do that as well, which is why you went to Carmel again right after the first group went to Carmel, because there was obvious value that we were seeing from that. And the entire council needed to go. And now we've had developers from this town take trips to Carmel as well because of that shared value, and are coming back, and we're changing the way that we're developing our trail system from that, and partially from Peachtree City as well. And as far as DC goes, when they said with the budget workshops, you should go and meet with the lobbyist group. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. But I think that's up to you and your schedule and what you can do, and they're going to be accommodating to that as well. But it's not necessarily Scott saying, I'm going up there, and do you want to come? I think you got to take that first step.
I think you should be on the next trip to DC.
So again, like, if I had not brought this up, like, you just told your story, right? And you're like, it's all about timing. And I feel like as long as there's a plan to discuss and the things that we learn, I think we're okay. I'm not, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be the next week. But if I would have never put this on the agenda, I would have never heard that story.
Well, you canceled 2 lunches with me, so.
I don't know if that's what you wanted to talk about, to be fair. It might have got brought up, it might have not. I don't know. But it's not just me. I think, again, the residents need to hear this. We get a lot of flack. And I know, no matter how great that square is going to be, and I have no doubt it will be, there will be some people that question it. And you could say, I've seen it, it works, it was over here, and tell your story, and then the residents get a better idea. They don't think we're doing everything all willy-nilly I know people think roundabouts are ridiculous, and to an extent, I can see where they're coming from, but unless I would have went to Indiana and saw them in action there, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have believed it. So again, I think we need to come back, we need to share, we need to say, this is what we saw, this is how it works. Even say, hey, watch this video about it. I think there is a video in Carmel, Indiana about the roundabouts, and we can share that. But this is not about calling anybody out, and I didn't want anyone to think that. They thought it was just going to be another argument, but it wasn't. It was, hey, let's discuss this, let's put it on the table, and let's figure out a solution. And I think Mayor Mitchell came up with the first one, which is in the manager's report, and I don't know where we're at with the second one, though. I don't know with deciding.
Personally, I'm not interested in the second one of having some sort of method of determining who goes on trips, because I haven't seen that be, with the exception of the Washington, D.C. trip, which seems to be of a particular issue with you, that hasn't been a situation.
I would have wanted to go to Peachtree. So we're clear. I'm just saying, it's not just Washington. It's just in general to see the things that they saw. It's kind of cool, and I get it. And I'm not trying to spend all taxpayers' money on me going to visit, but we got what we call the vibe from it, and so let's appreciate that. And I totally understand that, but let's make sure we're following up and even just an email. Hey, these people are going this week. Great. It's just nice to know. I don't want to learn from a Monday meeting manager's report that 3 people took a trip. And maybe some people are okay with it, but I really do prefer to know, because it starts off as Monday meeting, and then maybe Rizzo comes back and tells his neighbor, and Rizzo's neighbor tells me, did you know Rizzo went? And I'm just like, I didn't.
I'm trying to throw a bone here to help get some part of the policy changed. I don't think that.
No, I agree. I'm okay with that. I'm not saying there has to be a procedure, but maybe if we could just update, if Scott can send an update and say these people are going, or.
Yeah, I don't agree with it being a requirement that you should be forewarned before trips. But
I guess if I called it a forewarning, I can understand, but I just want to know.
I understand you want to know, but what I'm trying to say is, as it relates to if we take excursions, what you're suggesting is that we share that common benefit, because we can't all go, even if everyone's available, all 7 of us. It's not wise for all 7 of us to go to Peachtree. I didn't go on that trip. So what I'm trying to suggest is that, as it relates to a policy, anytime that we travel that's related overnight or has a hotel stay, that's not a part of a conference, that at the following council meeting during the city manager's report, that it be discussed and there can be some conversation about what was learned. That provides for what you're saying is transparency. I don't personally see that as transparency, but I do see that as beneficial to the group, which I do think that is important. And it gives us, at least the knowledge that, we're not going to be going on trips that you're not aware of for long periods of time. But generally speaking, that's about as far as I think that we really need to go.
Okay, I'll take it.
It's really not a motion for the city manager, because the city manager is not always aware of every trip. So it really is a policy situation. So I don't really know how there's no really direction to give. So it's just going to have to be a conversation that we have, or, we don't. Is there anything else that you want to do? We can give direction to the city manager to bring forward those trips, but an understanding that he has to be aware of it.
That's fair.
I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to provide a brief summary on any trips taken by council that include either an overnight stay or a or a flight that is not to a conference in the city manager's report at the meeting after which that is held, that travel is taken.
Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Kells. For discussion on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. All right, I'm done. Do you want to keep going?
No, sir.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Or adjourn.